Hello everyone, and welcome to the Fictional Vortex. So we are back with an interesting movie on what if Naruto was the king of Imperfect world, Naruto x Negima. But before we start, I just want to remind you to please subscribe to my channel and hit the like button if you enjoy my content. Let's start the story. Chapter 1. In Principio Part 1. Do we really have to do this? Asked a rather irritated raven-haired man as he found himself surrounded by at least 8 thugs. And since he was in a village full of magicians, that meant only one thing: magical thugs. Seriously, WTF? The man thought as he watched the thugs slowly try to but fail miserably into intimidating him. Just give us all your money and we'd let you pass, said a rather grim-looking UG wearing somewhat tattered scholarly robes. This happens every time I take a vacation, the man said as he showed no signs of even paying attention to the people surrounding him. One thug slowly approached the ravenet and placed a hand over the man's shoulder. Look pal, just give. He didn't finish whatever he was going to say before his arm was snapped in two shortly before he was knocked out by a sharp jab to the face. Before the other thugs could even react, the raven-haired man was already on them, breaking a few bones, tearing some muscles as he incapacitated each and every one of them. Before they could even react and cast any kind of magic to protect themselves. That's why you don't mug anyone. The man just shook his head after he easily dispatched of the thugs and continued walking, heading for a small pub that he was seeing close by to grab something to eat before a small figure darted past him. Please teach me how to fight, a young red-haired boy pleaded as he stood in front of the 20-plus-year-old. Blue-eyed ravenet wearing a fur-collared black jacket and black pants along with some weird-looking black gloves studded with red leather straps. Why the hell are you asking me that, brat? The man asked as he titled his head and looked at the boy, who was probably no older than 6 or 7. I saw you beat up those meanies in the neighborhood without magic. I want to be strong and cool like you, so teach me how to fight, mister. No, I'm on vacation for a few years and teaching some magician brat how to fight is not the way I want to spend it, the man replied. As he started walking away, but to his frustration the kid kept following him. Please teach me how to fight, the kid asked again as the ravenet began increasing the pace of his and to his surp. Rise, the young redhead was actually keeping up. Interesting, he thought as he decided to increase his pace a bit more. Please teach me, the boy asked again as sweat started appearing on his brows. He knew he had good stamina and was a fast runner, but the man's pace was difficult to match. You know what, I'll teach you, under one condition, the man said as the boy struggled to keep up. For the rest of the day, you need to keep up with me, he said as he increased his pace by a small amount, and you might as well give me a real good reason you want to be strong, not just because you think it's cool. He looked at the boy for confirmation and saw the kid nod furiously. If you do both of those things, I will agree to teach you, but if you fail, then, he didn't finish as he suddenly started running, leaving a trail of dust behind him. Hey wait, mister. The kid screamed out as he began running as hard as he could to chase after the man. What the kid didn't notice though was that the man he was chasing after was nothing but a fake. A realistic clone created by the ravenet who switched himself with it. Good luck, brat, the man said as he turned around and walked the opposite direction from the boy and entered the pub he saw earlier. Making his way to the counter, the man ordered a mug of beer as well as a simple meal made of potatoes and beef before he sat on one of the lesser crowded area in the pub. That damn troublesome red-headed brat has really gotten on my nerves lately, the ravenet heard from a person sitting near him, an old-looking man wearing a stereotypical magician's clothing. He even had the pointy hat. Yeah, that kid really is troublesome sometimes, his companion, another old man, replied. But you can't really blame him. The boy's practically an orphan, lost his parents to them. So it is true, the kid really lost his parents because of them. I heard they were killed because they refused their offer to join. You know them, they prefer recruiting members from this side of the world. The other replied as a loud sound of something falling echoes through the pub. Looking towards the direction of the sound, the two old men saw a raven-haired man, scratching the back of his head. Sorry about that, drop the mug, he said as he pointed at the draft of beer he ordered earlier, now nothing but spilled bare on the ground along with dozens of shattered glass. He spent a few seconds looking at his reflection on the puddle and glass in the ground before he shook his head and stood up, paying for his meal before leaving the bar. Damned brat, he whispered. As he slowly followed the trail that the kid and his clone left. Hours passed as the kid kept running after the man. When he was catching up, the man started running even faster. It was an excruciating experience for the boy, but he never gave up. The boy scraped his legs, palms, and elbows as he tripped and fell multiple times over. He was exhausted, injured, thirsty, hungry, and sweaty. Yet he never gave up and continued chasing after the man. Eventually the man stopped running and turned around to face him. It's been a whole 9 hours since this whole chase started, and the man was pretty sure it was about time to end this. So you finally found an answer on why you want to become strong? No, the boy said proudly between breaths, smiling as he looked at the older man. Honestly, people always call me an idiot, and it's really hard for me to think of an answer. I don't want others to experience what I did, that one reason. The boy grinned as he looked at the raven-haired man who was just silently observing him. But you know what, mister? I'll give you my answer in the future when I find it. The man chuckled lightly. You're really something, aren't you? He said as he exploded in a poof of white smoke, leaving behind a wide-eyed boy. Oi brat, what the hell are you waiting for? You said you wanted to be stronger, right? Came from behind the boy, making him turn around immediately. As he spotted the grinning Ravenet, arms crossed on his chest while impatiently tapping his foot. Let's go, the man added as he started walking away. Yes, the boy said as followed the man. Mister, what's your name? The boy asked as he looked at the man. My name is Naruto, but you can call me Sensei, he replied as he tilted his head to his side to face the redhead. What's your name then, brat? He asked. Nagi Springfield. The boy answered cheerfully with a wide smile on his face as he followed the man. Imperfect world. Nagi spent a few years under the man's tutelage as he learned how to fight from the man. Despite being the happiest years of the boy's life, they were also the most painful ones, as he spent almost every moment training in hand-to-hand combat, magic, ninjutsu, or shundo. So the boy was quite proud after mastering his master's fighting style, despite how much the older man told him that it was nothing more than a glorified version of brawling. Not like Nagi Cared, since it was a fighting style that fit him really well. Aside from that, the Ravenet also taught him how to use the physical power in the internal burning of one's own energy, or better known as ki, as well as teaching the kid a lightning spell or two, since it was the boy's affinity. Sadly it wasn't his, so the spells he though were rather weak and mediocre. He tried enrolling the boy to a magical school, but the boy ended up as a dropout in record time, since he blew half the school away while cursing at the instructors in his first hour in school. It still confused the raven-haired and to this day what exactly happened during that 1 hour, but every time he asked, the red-hide never bothered answering. Despite not wanting to admit it, Naruto himself was having a blast training the kid. He never did train anyone in the past besides, if his memory served him correctly, Konohamaru. He enjoyed teaching most of his skills to the kid, passing it down as he watched the kid slowly hone his arts. He wished that it could stay like this a little longer, but he knew it couldn't last forever. He already received a message a few days back. His vacation was already over and he had to go back. Naruto couldn't help but grit his teeth as he remembered breaking the news to the boy. It was the only time he actually saw the kid cry throughout the years they've been together. Eventually the boy calmed down and asked if he could come with the Ravenet. Sadly he couldn't, but the Ravenet did have something in mind for the future of the boy, and it involved the last trip the two had together. A trip to Japan. So it's time for your last test, Naruto said as he walked beside the now 10-year-old boy, who was wearing an orange gi along with a black belt tied around his waist. The two were walking towards a certain school in Tokyo. What's the test? Nagi said excitedly as he began to shake, making Naruto chuckle and ruffle his hair. Oh, it's nothing hard, you just need to win a small tournament. Cool, but it sounds too easy, sensei, the boy said as his eyes narrowed at the man who, despite all the years that passed, was still wearing the same black clothes. Good, you're learning, remember. Beer always look underneath the underneath. Hi sensei. We're here, the older of the two said as he pointed at two gigantic gates that had a huge sign saying, Mahora Martial Arts Tournament. The boy just stared wide-eyed at the sign as he sensei promptly opened the two gigantic gates with but a flick of the finger. As the doors opened, killing intent began flooding the entrance as men and women of all sizes glared at the newcomers. Nagi gulped while his sensei just shrugged off the intent. Nagi, stay here and sign yourself up. I'll watch all your matches and I swear to Kami if you don't win in the end we're going back to full-time dodging training. I'll see you after you win the tournament, he said as he left the area, leaving behind an already nervous boy amidst a swarm of fighters. You look nervous, came from a voice behind Nagi, prompting the boy to turn around. I'm not nervous because I know I'll win in the end, he answered as he saw the boy who decided to talk with him. It was a Japanese boy a few years older than him with spiky black hair, wearing square-rimmed glasses along with a black turtleneck sweater and gray pants. The boy was also holding a sheathed nodashi, and Chi was enough to tell Nagi that the boy was another participant in this tournament. You're pretty confident. Yeah, how about you? How are you feeling about this? I'm quite nervous myself actually, he said, only to get slapped in the back multiple times by Nagi. Don't worry, you'll do fine. That is until I kick your ass in the end. HW then chuckled. Ha ha ha, that's just a bit of sensei rubbing into me, he said as he scratched the back of his head. Oh, my name is Nagi, he introduced himself. Ah, my name is Ishin Aoyama, nice to meet you Nagi-san. Nagi's fine, no need for the honorifics, he said, as he extended his hand, gesturing a handshake for which the other boy kindly complied. Well Nagi, I hope to fight you in this tournament, sure be ready to get your ass kicked by me. I should be E1 telling you that, Ishin replied with a wry smile before he took a small bow. As much as I'd like to talk I must get going, he added before turning around and leaving. Ya see ya, Nagi said as he waved at the boy, before turning around himself as he started to look for the registration booth. Weird kid, both of them thought as they went their separate ways. Imperfect World, the tour name. NT itself pretty straightforward and simple. It lasted for the span of 3 days in which the audience of a few thousand watched them fight. The first day consisted of a few battle royale, while the second and third day battles were basically one-on-one fights. All of the battles were hosted in the arena, which was a white 100-meter squared ring. There were only a few rules in the tournament, such as use of weapons was allowed. Any preferred fighting style can be used, no ring outs, no killing. So it was just basically knock your opponent out and that's it. Simple rules that even an idiot could understand. For some reason Nagi was quite pleased with the rules as he easily understood it. The young redhead, as he was having a good time, his first opponent was a rather obnoxious teen wearing pink GI with overly exaggerated moves. The teen tried firing ki-based projectiles at Nagi, but they were pathetic, so pathetic that they actually dissipated shortly after they were released. Nagi punch. The guy in the gut once, then kicked him in the face. That was all it took for him to win, qualify to the Final Four. His second match shortly after the fight against the pink GI guy was a bit tougher than the first one. Nagi fought against a rather bald-headed man with a bit of his remaining hair on the side of his head spiked towards the back. Apparently the man was some big shot, owner of some huge-ass company. The man was definitely strong, as all his attacks seemed to shock Nagi when they hit him. Not that it hurt. He'd experienced worse under his sensei's tutelage. Nagi didn't really care, as he defeated the man by kicking him between the legs, making the man lean in forward before kneeing him in the face, followed by a flurry of punches before the man could even hit the ground. It took a lot more effort, but Nagi finally managed to get to the finals. Just one more win for him to officially graduate from his master. It was to no surprise that he reached the final round and was now FA. Shing, an opponent who he considered the only one not to be taken lightly. Ishin Aoyama, a practitioner of the Shinmei Ryu sword style, and from what he saw in the boy's previous fights, a damn good one. As well, even his sensei said that the boy was good, and that alone meant something since his sensei rarely praised others. Ishin stood in front of him in a rather calm manner, standing upright as he held onto his blade, ready to draw it at any notice, while Nagi on the other hand was direct opposite, as he adopted his usual brawler stance with his legs a few steps apart while his hands were held up in front of him with closed fists. The fight already started 5 minutes ago, yet the two were still not moving from their initial position. Despite the crowd's booing, the two held their ground as they saw no opening in each other's stance. That was until a gust of wind blew into the arena, making Nagi slightly shift his guard, making an opening that Ishin immediately took advantage of. Zangoken. The black-haired boy yelled out as he immediately rushed in and delivered a harsh vertical strike strong enough to slice a boulder in two towards Nagi, who reacted by jumping back to evade the blow. NLY to find a gash appearing in his chest. That was dangerous, Nagi thought as he decided to go into offense to not let the katan-wielding boy to unleash another blow like that. Taking one quickly street EP forward, the boy seemingly vanished and reappeared in front of Aishin, surprising the boy at the sudden burst of speed Nagi showed before he was forced to dodge a few blows aimed for his face before he double over after the redhead sucker punched him in the gut before jumping and connecting with a roundhouse kick to the face. Aishin clicked his tongue as he wiped his now bleeding lips and began evading Nagi's punches and kicks while looking for an opening. There, the boy thought as he managed to thrust the butt of the handle of his blade at Nagi's stomach, paying him back for the earlier TTACK before slashing his blade at Nagi, releasing his ki in a circular manner to create cuts all over the boy's body as he was sent flying onto the air. Zenkasen, he announced the name of his attack as he sheathed his katana. I win, he whispered to himself as he looked at the body of Nagi lying on the ground covered in wounds. Turning around, he made his way to leave the ring only to stop on his footsteps as he immediately brought out his sword and blocked an arrow-like projectile made of pure ki sent to him by Nagi. Match isn't over yet, Nagi told Aishin as he once again adopted his brawl stance before screaming and charging in on Aishin as he threw a few ki-enhanced jabs. In the VIP seat above the stands, a pair of blue eyes watched the battle closely. Ah, there you are, the voice an old man came from behind the blue-eyed man. Hello Kono-san, the Ravenet greeted as he continued watching the battle. Mind doing me a favor? He asked. Oh, what could someone like you possibly want from me? The old man asked back, chuckling near the end as he rubbed his long beard. I want you to introduce the kid to Phileas Zect. I'm pretty sure that old Bat could actually teach the kid how to become a decent mage. And why would I do that? Because that kid holds limitless potential in him, and I honestly suck at teaching magic. The old man mumbled out. That and I have the latest edition of Ika Ika for you. I'll do it, the old man instantly replied, causing Naruto to sweat drop. Back in the arena, things were going pretty well for Nagi as he opted on using Shu NDO, a high-speed movement technique that allows him to almost disappear in multiple bursts of speed. Aura 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 aura, Nagi screamed out while furiously punching Aishin. Tisk! Aishin clicked his tongu as he couldn't find an opening to use his blade without killing the boy. No matter how tempting it was, he didn't come this far in the tournament to lose via disqualification. Taking a deep breath, Aishin began weaving through Nagi's attacks before jumping back and thrusting his free hand forward into a palm strike, Zankusho. He muttered as a bullet made out of Ki was released from the palm of his hand. What the heck? Nagi asked in surprise as he observed the attack sail past him and hit the concrete in the ground, creating a small crater as it did so. Are you trying to kill me? Kill no, maim possibly, knock you out. Yes, Aishin replied as he suddenly vanished, appearing beside Nagi, fist already connecting in the young redhead's face. You're not the only one who can use Shundo you. No, Aishin told Nagi, who was sent stumbling back by his punch, before following up by hitting Nagi again with Zankusen, sending him down to the ground. Ah! The boy grunted out in pain as he rolled away from Aishin's follow attacks. Ignoring the pain from his bleeding wounds, Nagi managed to sweep Aishin in the legs, knocking him off balance, giving the redhead some time to at least recover and distance himself from the swordsman. Sadly, Aishin quickly recovered and was now standing in front of Nagi in the same stance he used at the beginning of the battle. Damn, I'm bleeding badly, Nagi said as he looked at his wounds before placing his hand beneath his chin, adopting an actual thinking pose in the middle of a battle. Sensei did tell me not to use this if possible, but I guess you're just too strong for me to beat without. Resulting to this, Nagi told Aishin, who simply raised a brow at the boy's declaration. But I did promise him I won't use magic, he said as he placed his fingers middle and index together before crossing them. This isn't magic though, Nagi said as 9 exact replicas of him suddenly appeared and charged at swordsman. What the? Aishin asked as he saw IPLE red-headed kids running towards him, an illusion. He thought as he slashed one of the clones and felt his blade sink into it. It's solid. Aishin thought as he was forced to use Shundo to move a Way from the clones only to be surprised when the clones themselves used Shundo as well to chase after him. Kami damn it, Aishin cursed out as he was slowly being overwhelmed by the multiple red head. He cut one down, two others appeared, and it was seriously pissing him off. As the bespectacled increased the speed of his blows, slashing off all the approaching clones, he failed to notice until it was too late that one of the Najis jumped towards him, fist already pulled back. The next thing the young swordsman felt was a fist hitting him in the cheek, sending him sprawling back until he felt multiple legs kicking him in his back, sending him up to the sky as his blade slipped from his hands. Aishin's eyes widened as he saw Nagi suddenly appear in the sky using Shundo. The last thing the SWORDS man saw before he lost consciousness was the grinning face of the redhead, as well as the boy's fist only a few inches away from his face. Springfield Rendon. Nagi screamed out as his fist connected at Aishin's face, sending the man crashing down into the arena, creating a 20-foot crater where the swordsman landed. There was a stunned silence as the Nagi landed on the ground, falling on 1 as he started breathing heavily. Need to train some more, he said to himself as the crowd broke out of their trance and began clapping. The youngest winner of the Mahura Martial Arts Tournament, Nagi Springfield. The announcer sitting on the booth at the side of the stage screamed out as the crowd cheered loudly. Ha 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 ha, I win. Nagi laughed out as he placed his hands on his hips. He kept laughing and laughing as his wounds continued bleeding. Before long, Nagu suddenly stopped and fell backwards unconscious. Idiot, Naruto said as he shook his head and made his way to retrieve his student. Imperfect world. Nagi hissed out in pain as he felt his wounds throb as he sat on a bed in the medical bay. Nagi was promptly dragged by the tournament staff into the room with Aishin shortly after he lost consciousness. It only took him a few hours to have sleep before he was up and about again. Shortly after Nagi woke up, he found Aishin resting on a bed beside him. A few conversations later and the two instantly became friends. Ha ha ha. Aishin chuckled while sitting beside Nagi before he grunted in pain as well. The swordsman didn't suffer much damage from the Sprin G-Field's attack. Aside from a few bruises and minor fractures, he was fine. Nagi on the other hand needed to get some serious stitching all over his body to close all the cuts that he had all over his body. Well, that was one hell of a fight you two had for the finals. The third person in the room said as he looked at the two badly wounded kids. Well, at least Nagi was badly wounded with all the cuts in his body, while Aishin was relatively uninjured except for the bruises he had on his left cheek and body, courtesy of the hard-hitting blows of Nagi. I won't be surprised if they decided to cancel that event just because of the sheer brutality that the audience saw from two kids. Yeah, I was so awesome, Nagi said as he raised his arms up in the air only to freeze as he started to feel more pain. Stupid brat, calm the hell down, Naruto commanded as the badly injured Nagi forced himself to sit down while Aishin wisely tried his best not to chuckle, knowing his wounds would hurt if he did. Why, oh, you did well, Naruto said as a seal appeared on his wrist glowing brightly before the room was covered in a puff of white smoke. And here's your graduation gift, he added as he handed a long wooden street AFF wrapped with white cloth to the young mage. Thank you, sensei. It's nothing, brat, the older man said as he looked at the red-haired kid one last time. This is goodbye, kid, it's been a fun few years, but my vacation just ended and I have a job to do. Is this really goodbye, sensei? The boy asked as he held onto his sensei's gift. He already cried, so there was no more need for an emotional goodbye. Nah, I think we'll meet in the future, I just feel like it's going to happen, Naruto replied as he ruffled the kid's hair before turning around and slowly walking to the exit. I'll see you two later, the Ravenet said as he waved at two one last time before finally leaving. Hey Aishin, yeah, wanna go on a journey with me? Nagi asked as he smiled at the swordsman. Aishin paused for a moment as he began thinking of the situation. It was either go home and train his swordsmanship or go traveling while training swordsmanship. It was a no-brainer since he didn't really want to suffer his sister's wrath after he tells her that he lost in the tournament. Sure, why not, but where are we going? Mundus Magicus, the redhead answered as he stood up from the bed and began walking towards the exit. Aishin, what are you waiting for? Let's go. The swordsman only shook his head while chuckling as he followed Nagi. This is going to be an interesting journey, he thought. Imperfect world. Meanwhile, while the two kids were planning the beginnings of what would turn into a grand adventure, Naruto was walking slowly, hands in his pockets, as he left the boundaries of Mahora Academy. Quote, "Yo," the Ravenet said as he kept walking, as he felt a familiar presence appear behind him. "He has awoken from his slumber. You are needed once more," a cold, monotone, and almost mechanical voice sounded. "I know. Trust me, I know," Naruto said as he placed his hand on his chest before sighing. "Although I am given freedom than any of you, I can't go against his words." He took a deep breath. "You know, sometimes I'm really jealous of you." "I do not understand. I hope one day you do," Naruto quickly replied as a large complex magical circle appeared beneath him and his companion, breaking the bone dairy of two worlds as the two were teleported into the other. The Ravenet's companion just looked at him with a confused expression, not really understanding what the man was saying. "I do not understand," he said once more. The Ravenet just shook his head and started walking through a red-carpeted hallway in what looked like a luxurious albeit dark mansion. The two kept walking as they entered a dark room, barely lit up by ominous-looking flickering blue flames. A few figures were standing scattered around the room, while one figure stayed in the middle, standing silently and erect as the two walked towards him. "I see you have come back," the man in the middle of the room said, a cloaked figure wearing dark robes that covered all of his body. "HN," Naruto replied as he knelt on one leg in front of the man. "Welcome back, my aloof friend. Glad to see you too," the Ravenet answered back sarcastically, something which the cloaked man clearly missed. "Well, rise, my good friend, the time is at hand," he declared as Naruto slowly stood up and slowly walked to the robed man's right side while his companion stood on the man's left, signifying their positions within this organization. "My friends, do you know of my wish?" the man in the middle asked as he looked around the room. "My wish is to lead this world to its future. The world I wish for is one of peace, a paradise, a utopia within this cruel and imperfect world." He then raised his arms to his sides as the light of the room slowly opened, revealing everyone in the room. Various mages, demons, dragons, and demi-humans stood tall as they watched the robed man continue with his speech. "We have the power. We will find peace. We will all find happiness in the paradise brought about by the perfect world." He dropped his hands to his sides dramatically as a large key appeared behind him, floating in the air. "We are Cosmo Entelekia and we will save this world," he declared as everyone in the room started cheering, "Hi-A!" ND almost euphoric as the man's words increased their morals to new heights. Even the normally emotionless one had a smile on his face. So they all cheered. All but one of them. Just one person in the entire room was clenching his hands so tightly that his nails dug into the palms of his hands, making them bleed. He didn't like this. He wanted nothing to do with this. No, he even wanted to stop this madness, but he can't. He can never go against the man's wishes. He was bound to the man. He was bound by the very same curse that was once inflicted upon the famous Hound of Quilon. A curse which was constantly strengthened by his own idiotic ideals. He never goes back to his words. Never goes back on his promises. That was his way. That was his curse. So the man just stood there at the right of the mage of the beginning. As his nails dug deeper and deeper into his skin. As he kept ignoring the pain. As he kept showing a rather impassive face to the crowd. As he kept wishing that this madness would end. Imperfect world end. And Naruto's appearance is based on his counterpart Menma, but personality and ability-wise he is more like Naruto. I could have just let him stay blonde and all, but I wanted to change his hair color. It's not like it's some plot device in the future, I just felt like doing it. Yeah. Just felt like doing it. Aishin's last name is from Love Hina, if you know the series. Then you know why I took the last name. Since I really didn't think that he was already a Kono in this part of the story, Sikni he doen't get the last name until after marrying Konoka's mom. Oh, and to add, this is the first of a 3-part prologue for this story before it goes to Negima timeline. Like it, hate it, what did I do wrong? What did I do right? Please review. In Principio Part 2, Imperfect World Disclaimer. I own nothing. N. Part 2 of the 3-part prequel. And changed a bit of stuff in chap 1 since I screwed up somewhere along the line, while this chap is mostly canon with some stuff mixed in. Tags. Oh, pairings. Naruto X undecided, read note at bottom, unvetted. Imperfect World story starts. Chapter 2. In Principio Part 2. War. One simple word that holds so deep a meaning. It is one event that guarantees to affect entire generations, be it annihilation of races, festering of hate, or just pure violence that changes how people think. Mundus Magicus sadly was in the middle of a war. No, a great war between the Hellas Empire, the largest country of the south, who with their powerful magic and armies of demi-humans who wanted to recapture their holy land Ostia, and the Meg. Alamsembria Confederation, a country full of mostly humans who with their ideals fought to push away the invading forces. Sadly, they were outmatched and were on the brink of collapsing. That was ill a band of warriors began, for a lack of a better term, causing hell and foiled the empire's attempts to get their land back. If it was for good intentions or if the group were just randomly passing by, no one knows, but the small group was causing trouble wherever they went. This certainly did not bode well with certain people. The moon was already shining brightly as two individuals met at a CERTAIN restaurant in the outskirts of the Hellas Empire. On one of the restaurant's tables sat a rather shady person, wearing a black suit, and a black fedora that shadowed the man's face. Sitting opposite the man is a tall, extremely well-built man, dark-skinned man common among the member of the Hellas race. The one considered as a god among the other gladiators, that damn guy who you can stab with swords all you like and it won't do a thing, damn it. Jack motherfucking Rakan. And right now the man was at the end of finalizing a deal that would also make him the richest man in this side of Hellas. The shady man placed a few pictures in front of Jack. These are your targets. The man said as he pointed at the first picture, a bespectacled man with spiky black hair, Ishin, an extremely skilled Ed Shinmei Ryu swordsman, probably on par with you when it comes to pure skill with the blade, but he has one huge weakness: he's weak against seduction, he added as Jack suddenly started laughing. In his head the man decided to continue as he pointed at another man, a brunette wearing a white cloak, Alberio Ima, a skilled mage adept with using gravity-based magic. He also acts as the team's Mary healer, standard wizard-type mage, just get a few good hits in and he's out. The man then turned to the third picture on the desk, a boy with white hair and slightly blushed cheeks, Phileas Zect. Don't let the boy's size fool you, he is highly skilled in both hand-to-hand combat and magic. Definitely a magic knight type fighter. Aside from that, we don't really have much information about him. And then took the last picture, a picture of a teenage redhead, as his eyes lingered on it for a few seconds, something Jack definitely noticed before continuing. Nagi Springfield. Come on, he's just a kid, Jack told the man as he looked at the picture. The man chuckled. If you get too careless and underestimate the brat, then you're going to get hurt. There, the man reasoned. The Ostia recovery operation failed by the time an elite organized subjugation party was dispatched. They had already completely turned the tables. The man then looked at Rakan. Perhaps you need some help. If you'd like, we can give you some soldiers, or don't need them, the Jack said, deciding to cut the man off. I can handle it on my own. Just leave them to me, all right? Good, the man said as he placed a suitcase full of money on top of the desk and stood up. Oh, and before I forget, Nagi Springfield, no weaknesses, he's invincible, the man added as he stared at Rakan straight in the eyes, even though his was hidden by the shadow of his fedora. Jack smiled as he could feel the man's eyes piercing through him, proving that the man he was dealing with was in no way just any ordinary middleman. An unstoppable force meets an immovable object. We expect good things from you, Mr. Invincible Gladiator, he added as he turned around and slowly walked away, leaving behind Jack, who was looking closely at the picture of the redhead. Jack grinned like a kid opening a present on Christmas morning. This is going to be fun. A little further away, the shady-looking man walked away from the restaurant as he headed for a narrow alleyway. The man sighed heavily as he slumped against a wall, his form slowly changing into a spiky-haired ravenet with blue eyes. The man placed a hand on his pocket and pulled a small mirror-like device as he pressed on a button. Did you accomplish your mission? The man from the other side of the mirror asked. Yeah, I'm done, so what's next? Actually I was planning Ning on giving you the next few days off. Feel free to do as you please, the man said before his image slowly vanished from the mirror. Cool, the Ravenet said as he smashed the mirror into dust with his bare hand. Before he brushed his hands together to get the remaining dust off. I hope you survive this brat, the man said as he looked up into the night sky staring at the two moons. The man get again as he pushed himself off the wall and walked deeper and deeper into the alleyway, slowly disappearing into the darkness. Imperfect world. It was early in the evening, as the moons were appearing in the sky slowly shining upon the middle of a rather serene environment in the midst of a forested area surrounded by mountains and inhabited by various life forms ranging from the most harmless of beings to most dangerous of dragons. But even the dragons in all their strength did not dare to interrupt a small hot pot picnic occurring in a nearby clearing. No one was stupid enough to do so. Let's start with the meat, Tilda, a teenage redhead said as he placed a slice of meat in the boiling hot pot filled with vegetables. This was Nagi Springfield, now 14 or 15 years old. Gone was the all kid from the past, and he was now replaced by a rather handsome teen wearing a black turtleneck shirt, black pants, and a matching pair of black steel-toed boots. Hey Nagi, don't put in the meat first, shouted an older Aishin as he wore an apron over his black turtleneck sweater while holding a bowlful of vegetable meant for the hot pot. Is lizard meat even good? Asked a small white-haired boy who was rather excited at tasting the unique meat. Oh come on, we've got to put in the good stuff first, Nagi shouted back at Aishin as he began dumping pieces of meat into the hot pot. Idiot, you need to place the vegetables first because they need more time to cook, Aishin shouted back as their rather silent companion placed his chopsticks near his mouth. Just shut up, Aishin. Geez, Aishin, I know what your kind are called back in Japan. You are a Nabe shogun. One who controls the hot pot. Alberio's sound tough. Zekt said, sweat dropping as he watched Nagi comically admit his defeat from the great Nabe shogun Aishin. I entrust everything to you. Do as you please, O Nabe shogun, Zekt added as he looked back at the boiling hot pot. Man, this is good, Nagi shouted as he started eating from the pot. Man, I wish the little princess could have some of this. Little princess? Are you talking about Ostia's imperial princess? Zekt asked as he grabbed a piece of meat with his chopsticks and started eating it. Well, we can wait until the war ends, Albiro said, reminding everyone of the war occurring within Mundus Magicus. Still, I can't help but feel that something is strange about this war, Aishin added to the conversation as he ate a piece of mushroom. Like what? Nagi asked as he ate another piece of meat, earning a glare from Aishin. Nagi, don't just eat Maya, Aishin was about to say, only to get cut off as every other member of their group suddenly jumped away as a gigantic sword flew through the air and landed on the hot pot, spilling its contents. Luckily, the other members of the group had the foresight to quickly grab the contents of the pot with their chopsticks and eat it before they fell on the ground. Meaning the only thing that hit the ground were the vegetables, while the pot itself landed on top of Aishin's head, covering the man in broth. Apparently someone was really stupid enough to interrupt their meal. Sorry to interrupt your meal, a tanned man on top of a nearby cliff holding a sword shouted out. I'm Jack Rakan, mercenary. How but a match? Who the heck is that? Zekt asked as he ate the last remaining pieces of meat. Doesn't look like he's from the Empire, Nagi said as he heard an eerie laughter coming from the swordsman of their group. Shit, he muttered out as Aishin suddenly disappeared in a burst of SP. Catching nearly everyone in the area off guard as he appeared next to the Jack, slicing his sword in two. Ah, Jack comically said as he stared at his now broken sword. Those who waste food shall die, Aishin said as he glared at Jack, releasing an insane amount of killing intent as he did so before he swung his sword down, slicing a good part of the cliff off and forcing Jack to jump away. Whoa, looks like that guy wasn't kidding, said Jack as he used his now broken blade to block and parry the furious assault coming from the bespectacled swordsman. Each swing of the teen's sword was sharp and strong enough to actually push the experienced gladiator back. Hey, time out. You're really strong, man, he told Aishin as he narrowly evaded the blows. Don't toy with me. If you want to fight, then fight me seriously, the Shinmei Ryu swordsman replied as he tightened the hold of his blade before swinging it rapidly, releasing multiple sharp arcs of wind at the mercenary, who still evaded the attack by back-flipping away. "Haha, you want me to get serious? All right," Jack said as he placed his hand in his pocket and pulled out 4 magical pills. "Like hell. It's 4 on 1, and the guy who hired me told me your biggest weakness," he said as he threw the pills at Aishin, who was ready to slice the pills apart, only to stop when they burst into smoke before receding and revealing 4 naked girls, all posing in rather risque and provocative positions as they slowly surrounded the now nose-bleeding swordsman. "The swordsman is weak against seduction. You coward," Aishin shouted out as he closed his eyes. "This is nothing. Clear your mind and you can overcome Annette." He didn't get a chance to finish whatever he was planning to say as one of the girls decided to hit him in the head with a gigantic statue, knocking the swordsman out. "Hey, that's 1 down," Jack said before jumping out of the way just in time to evade a bolt of lightning that struck where he formerly stood as he looked at the source of the attack. "Ah, so here's number 4, the invincible red-haired brat. Hey guys, don't butt in," Nagi said as he grinned as his wooden staff floated beside him, while his companions agreed to do so by immediately distancing themselves from the two. Jack threw his broken sword to the side as he cracked his knuckles. "Interesting, you know, in the South they say I'm absolutely invincible. BLE, he cracked his neck as he flared his magic, covering his entire body as he grinned back at the kid. "You sure you're up for this, old man?" Nagi asked as he began gathering magic in his right hand. "You sure you don't need your sword?" Quote, "Don't worry brat, I'm stronger barehanded." "Ha," Nagi said as he began releasing a huge amount of his magic, covering his whole body. "HMPH, Jack muttered out as he matched the teen's output. The earth began trembling as the two steadily charged their powers, and with a blink of an eye Nagi landed his magically enhanced right fist on Jack's face while Jack landed his right fist on Nagi's face. A crater formed beneath the two of them at the sheer force generated by their punches. "Ha," Jack grunted out as he overpowered Nagi, punching the kid away. "Ha ha ha." Nagi laughed out as he flipped in midair, spitting out blood before he created no less than 50 solid clones of himself. "Wow, so many of you. What are you brats, some kind of ninja?" Jack asked as he ran towards one of the Nagis and hit it with an upward palm strike, dispelling it. "No, but my sensei was," Nagi said, or rather a clone of his said before it and all the others exploded, tearing apart a large portion of the nearby forest, but left a rather unharmed Jack. Hecatontakis kai chiliacus astrapsato, hurled down lightning 100 and even 1,000 times. Nagi muttered in mid-air as he held onto his staff in one hand while holding a small notebook that he was reading out of in another. "High ancient spell, huh?" Jack though as he took in a deep breath. "Willpower defense. E-man thought as he covered himself with a defensive aura. Hillipal Astrain. 1,000 thunderbolts." Nagi finished as he sent the extremely strong lightning spell at Jack, destroying the nearby 4 as it engulfed the area in flames and covered it with thick dark smoke. "Was that it?" Nagi asked as he floated in midair as he looked at the burning pyre. "I kinda expected better," he added. "Damn, that hurts," Nagi heard from within the flames as a slightly singed yet relatively uninjured Jack slowly walked out of them. "That was some good shit, brat," Rakan said as kept grinning before he ked off the ground and charged at Nagi, who was already in the middle of casting another spell. "Not so fast, brat," Jack said as he punched Nagi in the face, forcing him to stop the spell, but to his surprise the kid grabbed the staff and channeled lightning along it, creating a gigantic halberd made of pure lightning that the teen swiped at Jack's chest, pushing him back. "You're fast for an old man," Nagi said as he let go of his staff and placed his fists in front of him, adopting the first battle style he ever learned. "Haha, you're pretty fast yourself, brat," he said before laughing loudly. Nagi smiled before he started laughing loudly as well. The loud laughing of the two drowned the entire area until the wind blew gently, and like how they began their battle, the two again found their fists on each other's face. Like a blur, the two began exchanging blow per blow as the entire land was shaking in their presence. It was an intense battle, and Zekt, Alberio, and the now conscious had the front seats to witness such a display of pure power, skill, and sadly idiocy. But aside from them, someone else was watching the fight, a person with black hair and blue eyes who was sitting G on another cliff a few kilometers away enjoying his day off. Damn, I heard of your achievements, but seeing it firsthand really is different from hearing or reading about it, Naruto said clearly. I am. Pressed on his former student's progress. RAAAKKKAANNNBEEEAAMMMMM. Despite how far he was from the real match, he still could hear the musclehead mercenary scream out his attack, laughing as he released a beam of magic from his eyes, destroying all those that was hit by the attack. Well, at least the environment, since it didn't even come close in hitting Nagi, who ducked and evaded the attack before charging in and punching the man in the body a few times before backflipping, kicking Rakan in the chin and forcing him to fire his eye beams up into the sky, shooting down a few dragons in the process. Naruto watched as Nagi landed back on the ground before he kicked off the ground and dashed into Rakan, who was still looking up to the sky. Don't tell me you'll fall for this brat, he muttered out as he saw Nagi, who tried to punch Jack in the liver only for the man to snap his head down and hit the teen with a headbutt, sending him crashing into the ground before Rakan grabbed Nagi and threw him onto a nearby cliff, creating a large crater as Nagi's back hit the damn thing. Naruto face-palmed. Well, at least you're stronger now, he said before smiling warmly as he continued watching the battle between the two invincible warriors. Imperfect world, so this is where you've been, said a feminine voice as a cloaked figure gently landed behind Naruto. Yeah, he said as he pointed at the two men who were still fighting. They've been at it for at least 12 hours, he said as he felt the girl slowly walk towards him before perching herself beside him. The cloaked girl looked at the intense battlefield before tilting her head to sneak a glance at the Ravenet, who to her surprise was smiling gently. It was rare for him to smile like that. She looked back at the battle once more as she watched a badly beaten red-haired teen standing against an equally injured man that was towering over him. It was David versus Goliath, but unlike the David of the story, this one was actual Ly going toe-to-toe against the Goliath, even managing to push the man back or make him stagger with ki or magic-enhanced punches. While the Goliath himself was moving as fast as the teen despite his larger frame, shrugging off the teen's blows as he landed his own equally devastating punches and kicks. The newcomer muttered out as she slowly noticed the boy's fighting style. It was like it ought him when he was a kid, if that's what you're thinking, Naruto said, not taking his eyes away from the battle and thus not noticing the girl suddenly freezing up. He was an orphan. Parents were key. LLED by our organization, he added as he watched Jack clothesline Nagi into another cliff, smashing it into pieces at the sheer force of the attack. He begged me to teach him how to fight. When I asked him why he wanted to be strong, you know what he told me? Naruto asked as he saw Nagi get up and slowly walk out of the now destroyed cliff as he created a dozen clones and charged at Jack once more. While his companion looked at him, waiting for him to continue, as her mind began thinking of only one possible answer. He didn't want to get stronger for revenge. Stop doing that, the girl growled out as she glared at the Ravenet from under her cloak. Doing what? He asked innocently. Reading minds. I can't read minds, he deadpanned, as another mountain exploded from afar, but I can read you like an open book, he said as he winked at her. Mind reader, she shouted out. Grave keeper, he replied. Pervert, she countered. Midget, he snapped back. Stupid, she said. Hag, slipped from his tongue as his own eyes widened. Crap, he thought, as he looked at his cloaked companion, a weird kind of magic already surrounding her hand. Smack. Too far, the Ravenet asked as he rubbed a red slap mark on his face. Too far, she confirmed. So, how the kid convince you to teach him? I know for a fact a lot of people tried and even begged you to teach them, but you never took a single apprentice. Simple. I gave him an impossible task to measure his resolve, and to my surprise the brat never gave up. He said as he vaguely remembered a scene of a boy never giving up despite everything that was thrown at him by life. That and the boy wanted to be strong so that no one would have to go through what he did. The girl looked at the Ravenet closely as she carefully studied him. So are why? Oh, you going to betray us and join the boys' group? No, Naruto replied as he stood up. I can't betray you guys, he dusted himself off. You of all people should know that Amateru. Baka. Don't say my name, the girl said as she looked at him. I know you've told me hundreds of times, he replied as he slowly turned around and started walking away. Aren't you going to watch this until the end? The girl now known as Amateru asked. I already know how this will end. Nagi will win, a Jack will join his group, Naruto proclaimed as he waved at her before disappearing in a swirl of black flames that singed the ground where he stood. Baka, the girl said once more as she shook her head and watched the battle unfold, and to her surprise after a few more minutes of fighting the battle ended with Nagi and Rakan both kneeling on one leg as they acknowledged each other's strength. Before Nagi was carried away by Aishin while the two flipped each other off. Judging from the smile on both men's face, she knew that Naruto was spot on. Jack Rakan was going to join their group, and that will only make them more troublesome in the future, but then again Naruto could probably deal with them when the time came. Mind reader and the ability to see the future. You never cease to surprise me, Baka, the girl said as she stood up before disappearing in a swirl of black flames like the Ravenet. Imperfect World, the group now known as Ala Rubra, led by the red-headed idiot Nagi, began gaining fame by siding with the Confederacy during the Great War. Their group made a name for themselves by going into the front lines as a versatile attack force that completely decimated their opponents. They gained friends and made a lot of enemies. The battles were hard fought, but their names were already guaranteed to go down in history as their group won a decisive battle that reversed the whole course of the war. This led the Confederacy towards victory as they slowly pushed back the Hellas Empire back into their territory. They were heroes, and their actions slowly earned the full attention of a certain organization. In a dimly lit room on top a tower overlooking the bustling nightlife of the capital city of the Confederation, Ostia, stood the Mage of the Beginning. He was looking in the sky, watching the two moons as if in a daze as he marveled at them. The man just kept staring at the moon, his face beneath his robes sad and bitter as he remembered a few distant memories, a small girl and a Ravenet man, an experiment gone wrong, a binding of souls, the creation of an entire world, and the discovery of its imminent destruction. The man just kept gazing at the moon until he heard the sounds of unusually quiet footsteps coming from behind him. Naruto, the man said as he broke his moonlight viewing and turned around to his right-hand man slowly walk out of the shadows. This made him internally smile. Even with the passing of time, the man was still a ninja to no end. Why did you call me? The Ravenet asked, rather irritated at being called upon in such a late hour. As shown by his arms crossed around his chest and rather impatient tapping of his fore. Naruto, my old friend, I have a favor to ask of you, the man said as he slowly pulled away his cloak to show his face, a rather handsome face of a blonde man with long hair and dead black eyes. Naruto sighed as he slowly shook his head. I wonder, do you even remember your first body? The shinobi asked as he looked at the mage's face. Of course I do, the mage said as he shook his head as well. One never forgets the body they were born in, no matter how imperfect it was. The man paused for a few seconds. Now for the favor, he added as he snapped his fingers, summoning a small magical crystal projector that appeared between the two of them as it showed the images of a certain red-headed boy and his companions. Thank God the shadows were covering his face, or the mage would have seen them visibly paled. Naruto was a realist. The moment the mage showed the picture of Nagi, various scenarios appeared within his head, majority of which involved the boy on the ground dead. He did not want the blood of the boy in his hands. Quote, I want you to look after this boy, the mage said as he looked at the picture of Nagi. Naruto mentally sighed in relief. Thank God. Though as he went through the man's orders again. They were vague. To look over the boy meant either to protect the boy or spy on the boy, but as long as his orders were not specific, he'd have more breathing room to work with. I understand, Naruto replied as he nodded at his liege's orders. Yes, thank you my friend, I expect you to look over our friend here. Do as you must, you can even join their group if you'd like. I only need to look after him, right? Why, yes, the mage replied as he waved his hand in the air, making the crystalline projector disappear. I'll see you then, Naruto said as he turned around and walked back into the shadows, disappearing into the darkness once more. My liege, why must thou still trust him, when it is clear as day that he will go against our cause, said the newcomer who appeared out of the shadows much like Naruto did. It was a man wearing dark robes and a white porcelain mask that covered most of his features. Because he will never betray me, Dynamis, the mage said as he turned around once more and stared at the night sky. Gazing the moons once more as it shined down his once again sad and bitter face. He is my only friend, the man added as nostalgia hit him once more. A child, a story, a soul, and a ravenet, the mage smiled. Dynamis. There is a reason why he is my right-hand man, he said, much to the ire of Dynamis, who was one of the most powerful and loyal generals within their organization. He is the one who knows me the most, the one that accepts me the most, the one despises me the most, and the one who wishes to kill me the most. But I know in the end, he will always be by my side. How art thou sure about this? That's just who he is, he never goes back on his promises, the man said as he looked closely at the beautiful moons that surrounded Magicus Mundus. Isn't that right, Naruto? What do you mean? Asked Dynamis, knowing well enough that the Ravenet was nowhere near the room anymore. It's nothing of your concern, Dynamis, the mage replied. He kept his gaze at the moon, but only for a moment. He felt as if the moons were gazing back. Imperfect world, when is this war going to end? Will it end if everything in this world is destroyed? Nagi asked as he sat on the ground. He was looking at the sun that was just rising from the horizon, bathing people in its warm golden rays. What's going to happen if this war keeps up? There's no point to it, he complained as he turned his head to look at his allies, all standing just a few steps away from him, all having various looks ranging from concern Ishin to the ever-impressive Dua. What? Coming from Jack. It's just like, Nag, I said as his eyes suddenly widened in realization. It's like someone is actually trying to destroy this world, right, Nagi? Alberio asked as Nagi nodded. That might be what all of this is about, Cam. From their newest ally Gato Kagura Vandenberg as he arrived with his student, a boy named Takamichi. I have the results from my network, the man said as he pulled out a stick of cigarette, placed it in his mouth and lit it up. Taking a few drags, he continued, it seems there's a force that is controlling both the Confederation and the Empire. An organization called Cosmo Entelekia. What's up, G? Ado? Nagi greeted as he stood up and approached their ally while carefully thinking about what he said. Why'd you call us all the way to the capital of the main country? Aside from the news that is, there's someone I want you to meet. They're here to work with you, the man replied as he took another drag of smoke before pointing at the other people slowly making their way to them. Senator McGill. No, not me, the old senator who knew the group replied. The guest of honor is the person over there, he said as everyone looked at the direction he was referring to and saw a beauty unparalleled in this world. Arika Anarchia Entheofushia, the princess of Vespertatia, a country caught in between the Great War and tried to act as a mediator but failed. Nagi didn't know why, but he felt his cheeks heat up when he was her. Much to the amusement of a certain mercenary who noticed the blush. He was so going to tease the redhead about this. And tease he did, after the meeting when the grow-up were left alone with the princess heading back into the palace, Gato and Takamichi going away to do some more investigating. Jack immediately placed his hand on the teen's hair and ruffled it. Wahaha, nice moves you have there. Brat, what the hell are you talking about? Nagi shouted as he tried to remove Jack's hand. Don't play dumb. You were flirting with the princess there. Ha, you've got some high-class taste, brat. What flirting? She hated me, you idiot. No, she didn't. She might be one of those dear things that I've heard from Hellas, Jack shouted as every member of the group just stared at him thinking, WTF. That's why you're still a little virgin boy, Tilda, Jack teased as a tick mark immediately appeared on Nagi's head. The hell does that supposed to mean? Nag, I shouted as he glared at Jack. You want to fucking fight? Huh, Nagi asked as he did his best imitation of a thug. What? Bring it, brat, you're 100 years early to be challenging me, Rakan S. Napped back as everybody in the group sweat dropped. Before the fight could even escalate into an all-out brawl that would have probably destroyed a good portion of Vespertatia, a rather relaxed and laid-back voice said, Yar. What a rowdy bunch. Before catching everyone's attention, everyone's head turned towards the direction of the speaker and saw a man around his 20s with raven black hair and blue eyes smiling. As he wore a black fur-collared jacket that was unbuttoned in the middle, showing of his well-built body, along with black pants and gloves studded by dark red leather strap. Sitting on top of a nearby building looking down on their group. Every member of the group had varying reactions towards the man's presence. Zek's was one of indifference, yet a small twitch in his yes revealed some sort of familiarity with the newcomer. While Jack was impressed that someone actually managed to sneak up of their group without any of them noticing. Alberio on the other hand was quite intrigued at the newcomer, who he could immediately tell at one glance was someone ridiculously strong. Aishin on the other hand had a smile on his face as he recognized the man. And Nagi, well Nagi, sensei, he shouted out as he started running towards the man. Nagi, Naruto shouted back, eyes closed, arms open, ring and middle finger of his right hand curled towards his palm. Sensei, Nagi, shouted back as he too closed his eyes and extended his hands as he jumped towards his one-time teacher. Nagi, Naruto shouted one last time before he moved his right hand in front of Nagi before flicking him in the forehead. Normally a flick in the forehead won't do any real damage, but if it did come from one of the most powerful beings in the world, it definitely would leave a mark. So despite Naruto holding back to an extreme extent, when the two fingers snapped at Nagi, it created a gigantic shock wave before sending the boy stumbling back. Ga tilde, Nagi cried out as he held his forehead with one hand while using the other to stop his tumbling. What the hell? Sensei, Nagi shouted only for the man to laugh loudly at him. Now that he remembered it, his sensei did act kinda like. Ha ha, ha 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 ha. Nagi heard from behind, not needing to look back to see Jack laughing his ass off. Oh come on, at least you're not unconscious. I know for a fact that I trained you to take tougher blows and that, Naruto said as he jumped off from his seat. Making Aishin and Alberio sweat drop at the man's questionable training methods, but then again they were always surprised at the amount of damage that Nagi could suck up, and apparently this man was responsible for it. So what are you doing here, sensei? Nagi asked as he kept rubbing his head. I was sent to kill all of you, he said as everyone suddenly tensed up and narrowed their eyes at the man. Naruto just smiled as he looked on all their grim faces. Just joking. Bwahahahaha tilde. He laughed out while hitting his leg. Oh god, you should've seen the look on your faces, he said as he wiped a tear falling from his eyes before looking at the group and even his student. They were still glaring at him. Not funny? Naruto asked. Not funny, sensei, Nagi replied for the group. So why are you really here, sensei? I hired him to help with the war, a feminine voice answered for Nagi as the team looked and saw Arika, who just arrived at the scene. Naruto here is a rather well-known mage in this country, and we've decided to hire him on our side to increase our chances of rooting out the problems. She emphasized on the word rooting as S. He looked at Ala Rubra. Though he is quite crude, he is also loyal to Vesperitish line and was recommended to the position by my father, she added as she looked at Nagi. Meh, I already know him, he's my sensei, Nagi carelessly said as he dismissed the princess by waving his hand. Slap. Damn it, Nagi said as a slap mark appeared on his cheek. What the hell, woman? Slap. What was that? Nothin'. Gee, Nagi mumbled out as Jack kept laughing at him while Naruto was scratching the back of his head as this scene seemed extremely familiar to him. Shaking his head, he placed his hand at the back of his former students before putting him in a headlock. I've heard a lot of things about you, brat, he said as he ruffled on Nagi's head. Let's see if the rumors about your strength are exaggerated or not, the Ravenet said to the surprise of everyone as he laughed while dragging Nagi along despite the teen's pleas. Are you sure it would be wise to leave Nagi alone with that man? Alberio asked as Arika glared at him. Do you doubt my words? She asked in a sickish sweat manner that made the Alberio back of almost immediately. That guy looked like he's strong. I'd like to go a few rounds against him, Jack said as he looked at the retreating form of the Ravenet and Nagi and considered actually following them, but decided to go against it when he spotted a few beautiful ladies passing nearby and decided to tease Aishin. While Zekt kept his eyes at the retreating figure of his student and the Ravenet. He needed to talk to that man sometime soon. If he was here, that meant that he was about to make his move. And that did not bode well for their group. Not at all. Meanwhile, Naruto finally released his grip on the redhead's neck as they reached the outskirts of the capital, normally an hour away on foot, but with high-speed shundo it only took a minute to get there. We have some catching up to do, brat, Naruto said as he sat on a nearby rock. Hey, so are we going to fight sensei? Nah. Gi asked, grinning as he began cracking his knuckles. No, I haven't seen you in years, so I might as well ask how the hell you're doing before we end up destroying this place. I'm doing fine. Did you finally have your answer for me? Naruto asked as he cut off Nagi. The redhead smiled as he scratched the back of his head like all those years ago. Sorry I haven't, sensei, but I think I'm close to figuring it out, he answered. Keep searching, the Ravenet replied as he looked up in the skies. It was early evening and the moons were slowly appearing in the night sky. Who knows, you might find your answer by the end of this war. He hoped the boy would find the answer. He needed to gain that resolve to become truly strong. So brat, Naruto said as he cracked his knuckle, should we catch up? He said as he grinned madly as he released his power. A grin equally matched by his student, who did the same thing as the ground began shaking at their presence. Before both of them disappeared, Na burst of speed and began their battle as they quickly exchanged blows that began tearing the area apart. Naruto smiled for this short moment given to him. It was a small amount of happiness allowed for someone like him. It was the only time that he can be happy with his student before reality eventually sinks in. Eventually he will have to fight them, but for now Naruto decided to live in the moment. Carpe diem, he thought, as he continued exchanging blows with his former student. He was a spy. The teen and his friends are the enemy. Sometimes the world was just unfair to force the teacher and the student to fight against one another. But alas, that is life, cruel and imperfect like the world they live in. Imperfect world end. Couldn't resist adding the Rakan beam, since I really felt the Rakan can pull off something like that. Guess which character I took that skill from. If you're a fan of that franchise, you'd know. So yeah, no pairings for this story as of now, but if there was going to be someone paired with Naruto, it can't be someone who's a full-fledged member of all the Y. Because they already have enough screen time in the actual manga and already well developed. So I'd prefer if Naruto is paired up with someone not given that much spotlight. That means the character I'm currently considering are Mana, Zazie, Master of the Gravekeeper's Palace, Amateru, Poyo, Sextum, and probably Evangeline. Yeah, I know Evangeline has enough screen time as well, but our character can easily be tied in with Naruto's character in this FIC since he is working for the mage of the beginning. It means taught at one point in the past the two. Well, I don't want to spoil anyone, lols. Like it, hate it, please review. In principio end. Imperfect world disclaimer. I own nothing. This chapter is the last of the three-part prologue. This chapter is pretty meh, and I purposely cut out some of the latter parts the story since I want to give everyone the general idea of what happened, but not necessarily the entire thing, which will slowly be revealed in future chapters. Also, I think this is the longest chapter I've ever wrote, so yeah. Damn. Unbedded. Tags. Oh, emphasis on this. Imperfect world story starts. Chapter 3. In principio end. With Naruto joining the group, all Arubra became even stronger as their fame increased 1,000-fold as the group did their best to mediate and prevent the war from damaging further Vespertatia while trying to minimize the casualties in both sides of the war. Aside from that, the group had made some headway into discovering the existence of a certain group, Cosmo Entelequia. They still did not know of the group's purpose. At first they thought it was an organization that profited from the war itself, with many of its members being high-ranking officials from all over Mundus Magicus. To gather more information about Cosmo Entelequia, all Arubra split into two groups. The subtle and rational ones formed by Aishin, Gato, Al, Zect and a young Takamichi, who were responsible for gathering information about the organization, while the other group, or as Al called it, Baka Trio, that lacked the delicacy, tact, and patience in gathering info, stayed with the princess in Naji's case, or just relaxed and did nothing in Jack and Naruto's case, at least when the two weren't sparring and destroying half the city or spying on the blooming young love between Nagi and Arika. It was at that one moment of Naji's entire life that he actually regretted befriending Jack or meeting his sensei. Alone the two were obnoxious and irritating. Together they were a force to be reckoned with, and no one was safe. Even Naji's normally stoic and silent master Zect had a hard time trying his best not to slug Naruto for the man's habit of irritating people. On the other hand, despite their teasing, Nagi was actually enjoying his time with the Princess Royal magic-powered slaps, constant shopping, and assassination attempts aside that is. He even ended up dragging the princess along in destroying one of organization's bases. And it was there that Nagi learned that royal magic really was some scary shit. On a side note, aside from Hibaka trio, there was also an arrow trio formed by Jack, Al, and Naruto, but that's a story from some other time. Eventually the group reached a breakthrough when Gato managed to gather information on one of the group's members that had infiltrated the Megaloncembria Senate. They finally had a name and were so close in actually exposing the existence of this group. Too bad they had a spy on their midst. A spy that immediately reported their discovery to his associates. Nagi, Gato, Jack, and Naruto walked into the office of the one and only Senator McGill, a loyal ally of the group who has proven his worth through and through. McGill set an appointment with the Praetor in order to impeach and judge the Cosmo Intellectia member. Said man was facing the large window behind his office. He overlooked the city of Vespertatia as the man stared at the moonlight sky. Senator McGill, Gato greeted as Jack and Naruto nodded while Nagi's eyes narrowed at the man. Good work. I take it the evidence you have brought is the original one? The man asked. Yes. Has the Praetor not arrived yet? Gato asked. I'm afraid he will not be able to join us. Pardon. We finally have victory in our hands. It would be somewhat unsettling to create a ruckus and tarnish the mood now. Don't you think? The senator asked as he slowly turned around and faced the group. I see, Gato muttered out a. Nagi further narrowed his eyes while Naruto looked around the room and noticed the positions of every combatant ready to be summoned at a moment's notice. Ichi the Auteur of Fire and Sexdessen the Dad of Water. He then looked at the senator, plus Primum of the Earth. Man, they're going all out. He then looked around the room some more. I wonder which one will they send to go against me for the saw. K of keeping up my cover. He looked around carefully and saw a rather larger than normal shadow in the room. Oh come on, he whispered to himself as he noticed Dynamis in the room. You're not Senator McGill. Who are you? Nagi asked as he glared at the senator. Wah! The senator wasn't given any time to answer as a bolt of lightning hit the right in his face. What the hell? Nagi, Jack, Gato, and even Naruto screamed out at the sheer brashness and stupidity of Nagi's action. Seriously, who frigging does that? Oh shit, the senator's face is on fire, Gato repeated. Fuck, if we're going to jail for this we might as well try to get rid of the evidence, Jack screamed out as he pulled out a sword. WTF are you planning on doing with that, Jack? Gato immediately said as he stood in front of Jack. Okay. Guys, if we leave now and just pin this on Nagi I'm sure we'll be alright, Naruto added. Yeah, it was all Nagi's fault, Jack said as he nodded. Definitely Nagi's fault, Gato added as his nodded as well. Well, see you Nagi, the three of them said as they all turned around and decided to walk back to the exit only to jump away when a huge slab of stone was thrown at them. Guys, Nagi said, getting the other three's attention as they saw an aquamarine-haired man standing amidst a small pyre made by Nagi's attack. You catch on quick, Nagi, man of 1,000 spells. I can't believe you saw through my disguise easily. It seems I need to do more research, the man said as he threw away his now useless disguise charm. As for the senator, I am quite sorry to tell you that he is no longer alive. You bastard, Nagi screamed out as he kicked off the ground and ran towards the aquamarine-haired man. Only for his eyes to widen when two long-haired men appeared in between him and the imposter. You will not pass, the one with long green hair said as he conjured a gigantic torrent of water and sent it crashing towards Nagi. Take this, the one with long white hair added as he released a gigantic wave of flames, throwing it at Nagi with all of his might. Shit, Nagi cried out as he made a quick stop and forcefully jumped back to evade his impending demise. Bro. UGHT about by those two high-leveled spells. Damn, these guys are tough. Ha, as long as they're made of flesh and bones we can kill them, Jack said as he brandished his sword while Gato took out and lit a stick of cigarette. And Naruto? Well, Naruto already charged in before anyone else can move and jumped midair, leg extended into a kick, dynamic entry. He shouted out as his feet met the FACE off Dynamis, who was slowly descending from the ceiling. For a moment everyone in the room was smiling for one reason or another. The members of Era Rubra were quite impressed that Naruto was able to sense an enemy that no one else noticed and attacked him before they could have potentially harmed their group. While the members of Cosmo Entelequia, or at least the two elementals, were smiling back. It was quite well known within the organization how the two never got along. That and seeing Dynamis getting his ass handed to him by Naruto never got old. Shaking his head, the aquamarine-haired man Primum placed his hand on his ear. "It's me, Senator McGill," he said, copying the voice of the late senator. "God bless his soul. We've got traitors. Yes. They tried to assassinate me. Yes, hurry, send for reinforcements. Quickly. Springfield, Rakan, Vandenberg, and that man called Naruto. Yes, they were spies for the Empire. They're friends and partners too. Send word to everyone they HHHH, he finished as he ended the communications. Nagi blurted out while Gato took a drag. "Damn, they got us," the man admitted, actually quite impressed at the well-executed plan of their enemy. Now their whole group were the enemy of both the Hellas Empire, the Confederation, and since Arika was their ally, she and her country would probably be taking the fall with them. "I'm afraid you've veer done it a little. I'm sorry, but I'll need you guys to make you exit now," Primum said as he pointed his right hand at them and sent gigantic pillars of earth at them while his companions sent another wave of water and fire at the group. Their response: Nagi and Jack ran towards the attack, laughing out loudly, while Gato calmly followed, using his unique ability to combine magic and ki kenka to enhance his strength by having it surround his body. Nagi created a few clones which tossed him over the attacks as he flew up in the air and imitated the move that his sensei just performed mere moments ago. "Dynamic entry," Nagi shouted out as his foot landed on Primum's face, surprising the earth user. The fire user Ichi and the water user Sexdecin immediately turned around and was about to unleash another barrage of their elemental magic at Nagi, only to stop when Ichi was suddenly tackled and slashed by the large muscle mass known as Jack Rakan, while Sexdecin was promptly blown away by a Kenka-enhanced punch from Gato. The two constructs respectively recovered from the attack before they went charging in towards their respective opponents. Nagi, on the other hand, started exchanging blows with Primum, noting that the man was somewhat adept in hand-to-hand based combat. "Dori Petra's spear of stone," Primum said as a spear of stone shot out of the ground aimed at the redhead mage's stomach, only for the boy to grab the attack before it hit him and smash it into dust with his very hands. "Impressive," Primum said as he threw a few jabs at Nagi. The earth user ducked and grabbed the teen's leg from an attempted roundhouse kick before throwing him away. If you're impressed by that, then you won't last a second when I start bringing the heavy attacks out," Nagi said as he flipped midair and broke his fall. The moment his feet hit the ground, Nagi used Shundo and reappeared beside Primum and punched the man in the face, only this time the young mage frowned as he saw Severa El Mandala-esque barrier form around his opponent, blocking his blow. "What the hell?" Nagi said as he created several lightning arrows around him and sent them flying towards the barrier, which was barely phased by the attack. "The foo," was all Nagi said before he was punched in the face and sent spiraling back towards Jack, who thankfully caught him. "Watch it, brat," Jack said as he grabbed Nagi by the collar of his shirt and threw him back at the rather emotionless earth user. Before returning to his brawl against the fire user, having thrown his sword away, Jack decided to just punch his problems away as he exchanged punches with the flaming fists off his adversary. Gato, on the other hand, had only a moment to sweat drop at his friend's antics before he was forced to jump away as he kept his hands inside the pocket of his pants, adopting his self-taught icon, Muken stance, silent fist. "Shichiju Taiso. Muken. 7-streak Great Lance Silent Fist," he whispered as he sent several watered-down version of a usual city-busting attack. He did not want to destroy half the city like his friends usually do, of his Iakan punches at Sexdecim, slowly pushing the water user back as the Iakan user kept pummeling the other man into submission. Meanwhile, Naruto was as expected beating the crap out of Dynamis. "You fucking dare strip here to enter your general battle mode and I will King murder you," Naruto silently whispered to Dynamis, making sure no one else heard as he kneed the man in the face twice, before spinning around and kicking the man in the leg and elbowing him in the cheek. Naruto smiled, satisfied at getting to punch someone even better that it was the shadow user. You see, being a spy wasn't really easy, especially when the man was attached to those he spied on. constantly putting them in more dangerous situations even though he didn't want to. So from time to time Naruto wanted to vent all his frustrations, and this was the perfect opportunity for it. Naruto flipped back a few times to evade spears made of shadows as he distanced himself from Dynamis. "Thou heathen! Thou shalt fall by my blade," Dynamis declared while he raised his hands up in the air. Moaning blades made of shadow from the ground, forcing Naruto to jump in order to avoid them, or at least try to avoid them, as they apparently had a new built-in homing ability that chased after the Ravenet. "Shit," Naruto grunted out as he felt himself getting slashed a few times. It was nothing but scratched, but was still quite infuriating that Dynamis was managing to damage him. Stupid shadow user. As he created one of his signature clones midair, who grabbed him and threw him towards Dynamis before it was dispelled after being impaled by a countless number of shadow blades. Naruto extended his left hand to his side as a small spiraling sphere promising pure and utter destruction formed within the palm of his hand. Dynamis, knowing well how it felt to get hit by that attack, jumped away to evade the blow as 6 cloth-like tendrils shot out of his back, flying towards the Ravenet. Seeing the attack coming, Naruto used the sphere to block 3 of the tendrils before his attack dispelled itself. The Ravenet grinned as he saw the 3 remaining tendrils coming at him, forcing him to skillfully dodge the blows as he slowly walked towards Dynamis, who sent a few more tendrils towards him. Taking a deep breath, Naruto closed his eyes for a moment before extending his right hand forward as he muttered 3 words under his breath, "Chikura no Kusari," and with those RDS chains shot out of the Ravenet's back and was sent to block or restrain each and every one of Dynami's tendrils. Naruto grinned as he used Shundo and reappeared in front of Dynamis. Fist Alred. Y cocked back as he channeled energy into it. "Sayonara bitches," he screamed out as he punched the shadow user in the chest, sending him flying through the air towards Primum. "Goddamn it, Jack," Nagi screamed out, still airborne, as his staff appeared beside him. "Kenitetos astrapsado de Temedo. Dios Tychos. Come forth from the void, O thunder, and cut down my enemy." "Axe of lightning," he shouted as he swept his left hand downwards as he created a massive discharge of lightning, hitting Primum, this one pushing the man back as it got through his barrier. "Well, what do you know?" Nagi smiled. "It seems your barrier can't all of my attacks. But aren't you forgetting something?" "What did you seriously forget?" Primum asked as he raised one eyebrow at the reed head, who just titled his head sideways. "The guards are about to go." The man sidestepped as an unconscious Dynamis was sent flying at him, courtesy of Naruto, who was now dusting his hands while shaking his head at Nagi. "He meant about the fact that we're basically traitors now and that the entire Confederate army will chase after us." He looked at the entire situation. "Jack, Gato, Nagi, we have to retreat," he shouted out. "You think we were just going to let you?" Primum asked as he slowly floated off the ground. "Omicron Tartaros Kaimenon Basilian Nepsron, Piansados Eamon. Oh, Temple of the Sleeping Dead beneath the earth, Apper below us." The man began chanting as Naruto already grabbed Nagi and threw him out of the glass window before he looked and nodded at Gato and Jack as the two broke away from their respective battles and jumped out of the window as well, leaving Naruto alone with the enemy. "So are you really going to continue casting that spell?" he asked as Primum nodded. "Figures," Naruto said as he jumped out of the window. "Omicron Monolithos Kaian Tu Ido. Pillars of Hades," he heard the man say as 8 gigantic pillars of earth pierced through the entire building, instantly killing almost everyone in the vicinity, except the Cosmo Intellectia members. Ichi then proceeded to burn the entire place down, leaving no traces of a battle ever occurring in there before their group left with Sexdecim still carrying an unconscious Dynamis. Imperfect world. After narrowly escaping their first encounter against the organization, Nagi and his group decided to admit their losses before proceeding to battle their way around the continent, fighting the Confederacy and the Empire alike as they made their way to the ancient ruins of Noctis Labyrinthus. The ancient ruins where Cosmo Intellectia have captured and imprisoned Arika along with the third princess of the Hellas Empire, the Theodora. Odd enough, Jack and the Theo started arguing 24/7, something Naruto convinced Nagi to use to tease Jack about. Bad for Nagi that the moment he joked about any possibility between a relationship forming between Theo and Jack, the two both responded by literally beating the crap out of him. With Jack telling "I am that I'm not a fucking lolicon. And Theo saying, I would never go for a swine like him. Before she stared at Naruto for a moment before blushing and going back to kicking Nagi's ass. That was the last time he would listen to his former sensei's advice. The members of All Arubra along with Arika and Theodora stood within the western coast of Tharsis, one of the many hideouts of All Arubra, as they talked about the situation at hand. This where things get though, princess. We have no allies in the Confederation or the Empire, not even your own country. Nagi said as he walked beside Arika. Yes, I am afraid that much is undeniable. Your Highness, your own capital of Ostia is in a similar position Cosmo Entelekia has corrupted the higher-ups in your country, Getio added as he took a drag from his cigarette and exhaled it. I suspected as much, the princess said as she looked at Nagi. My knight. I said stop calling me that, I'm not your knight. I'm a frigging mage, not a knight. He said Heil Naruto and Jack made whipping sounds, making the redhead glare at them. She ignored him. You are no longer a soldier of the Confederation, correct? Then naturally, you are under my service. The entire world is against us, she said, but your group is invincible, right? Mr. Thousand Spells, the princess said as she smiled at Nagi, making the teen smile softly. Struggling against the entire LD a fine proposal, Nagi joked as he looked at the group. Rakan was still arguing with Theo, Aishin was standing beside Zect and Al. Gato was standing right beside Takamichi while Naruto was standing a bit further away from the group under the shade and away from the sun. On our side we are but 8, but they are the greatest 8 people that one would wish for. She looked at all of them. So let us save this world. Nagi, be my knight, my shield, and my sword, she declared as Nagi closed his eyes and smiled before kneeling down before her. Hey, I sure can't accuse you of being a docile princess. Fine then, my staff and my wings are yours to command, my princess. Naj answered back as Arika pulled out a sword and rested it on Nagi's shoulder just as the sun reached its peak and bathed all those in the area in its glory. All but one, who stood in a distance, hand clutched in his chest as he looked at the scene before him. He felt guilty, yet he can do nothing but hide it. Hide it as it slowly grew within him. It killed him to go through with this imperfect world. The following months were quite busy for All Arubra as their group of only 8 men went on an all-out counter-attack against Cosmo Entelekia. With Alberio, Theodora, and Arika planning the assaults in private to prevent any of their plans from leaking out, making it harder for Naruto to actually gain any useful information for his organization as he noticed that they were slowly getting pushed into a corner of this war, yet he was not yet being called back, something that without a doubt unnerved the Ravenet. The battles raged on as the group eventually stopped the war between Hellas and the Confederate itself by rescuing the Twilight Imperial Princess and eventually discovering the last domain of their enemy. The main base of their operations, the last dungeon. The royal palace of the world's most ancient capital, Ostia, the floating palace named the Gravekeeper's Palace. Naruto stood on top a building only a little further away towards the ancient city. That was his home, his base, and he knew that this battle would change everything. The Ravenet had his eyes closed as he thought about the past few months. It was fun, definitely, but like all good things it must come to an end, and sadly the day that he has dreaded for to come was today. What are you doing alone here? Everyone is down RS getting ready for battle, said a feminine voice behind him, making Naruto turn around and see Arika herself standing just a few feet away from him. I already told Nagi to kick some ass. And I'm just thinking about how I'm about to betray you guys during the last moment and reveal myself as one of the enemy generals, Naruto confessed. I see your sense of humor is still as dull as always. Yeah, Naruto said as he looked below, down onto a balcony where the rest of All Arubra was standing, chatting happily before the battle that will decide the fate of the world begins. He then looked over to the horizon towards the palace floating in the sky, as his vision increasing as he channeled chakra into it and saw the mage of the beginning standing outside one of the palace's balcony, telescope in hand as he talked at Primum, who stood beside him while looked down on Nagi's group. I wonder, Naruto said, catching Arika's attention, what will Nagi do when he learns of their purpose? Would you mind telling me what you are talking about? Cosmo Entelekia's goal, he said as he kept his eyes on the palace before turning around and looking at the princess who had a rather calculative look on her face. Tell me, princess, what is a human being? The ravenet asked. The girl said as she began thinking of the best response. Naruto smiled. Princess, a human is a fool who only knows how to move forward. In the end, that's the only thing a human can do, move forward. He smiled sadly. Like him, I have 2,600 years to attest to that, he told her as he turned around his back. Facing her as he looked at the castle once more. As for why I asked you, because I know of Cosmo Entelechia's goal. I know since I was there when it was created, he said as he heard a gasp from behind him. Arika, please take care of that idiot for me, he told her as his activated one of his teleportation spells, one he developed based on Shunshin, making him slowly disappeared in a swirl of black flames, leaving behind a shocked princess. You were the spy, she said, tears threatening to flow out of her eyes. Despite how she acted towards him, she really liked Nagi, and if he finds out his old sensei, a man who the redhead trusts more than anyone else, was an enemy, he'd be utterly devastated. She knew someone was giving out the information to the enemy, but she never expected him of all people to be the one who betrayed them. She was too foolish to trust that man. She had to tell Nagi. She looked down the balcony only to see that it was already empty. The princess then looked at the HOR. Eyes on towards the ancient capital. The other members of All Arubra were already charging in towards the palace as aerial battleships and Valkyrie knights flew just behind them. The final battle was about to start. Imperfect world. Don't waste your energy on the mooks, leave them for the knights. Head for the center of the palace, our enemy stands there, Zect calmly said as the others nodded despite the strong temptation to say to hell with the plan and just scream out their names while running head first into a horde of enemies coming from both Jack and Nagi. Too bad Naruto couldn't be here with us right now, Jack said as he held on to two broadswords carrying one in each hand. Yeah, he would have been a great help for this battle, too bad he got pretty banged up after that whole battle with that dragon god, Aishin added while Alberio and Zect remained quiet. The two had long since suspected that the man was a spy from the enemy organization, so they were quite pleased to know that he would have nothing to do with this operation. A sudden burst of magical power caught the group's attention as they got closer to another part of the castle, a gigantic cathedral that stood in between them and their destination. The magical power then stopped and suddenly busted out in intervals, confusing everyone but Nagi, whose eyes widened. Stay here, Nagi said as he walked towards the cathedral. Why? Aishin asked as Alberio shook his head and placed his hand on Aishin's shoulder. Do not follow him, Aishin, this is something he has to deal with on his own. Hey, you perverted book, do you know something that we don't? Rakan asked as he glared at Al. Jack, let this one go, Zect said as the huge warrior looked at the smallest of the group. Trust Al, this is something he must do on his own, even if it means me and all would have to fight you and Aishin to prevent you guys from entering this place. The gladiator growled out as she stabbed his swords in the ground. He has 30 minutes, after then I'm going in. Very well, I think that amount of time would be appropriate. Nagi took a deep breath as the cathedral gates slowly opened, showing him a red carpeted pathway leading into the inner sanctum. He walked in, staff floating gently at his side as he left his allies behind before the gate closed. Inside the cathedral, it was dark. That was the first thing Nagi noticed as he kept walking into the deeper parts of the cathedral. Despite the fact that this had the word trap written all over it, the magical energy he felt flickering only moments ago was a secret way to communicate that only he and one other person knew about. Nagi stopped walking as his eyes widened, tears already threatening to flow out as he saw the familiar figure sitting in front of an altar devoted to some sort of mythical god as the warm sun from the outside slowly seeped in the room, revealing the man's face. I was sent to kill all of you. Should we catch up? You like the princess, don't you? Don't worry, I'll keep it a secret. Nagi, you've really grown strong. I'm proud of you. Good luck, Nagi. Kick some ass for me. Why? The teen cried out as the one person who started him off in his path to gaining strength. The man who he could consider a friend, or a brother, and even a father was sitting deep within the enemy's stronghold. It didn't take an idiot to add things up. Sadly, Nagi refused to believe it. Why, sensei? The teen asked as he held onto the staff given to him by the man. Naruto for his part remained silent. The order given to him by the mage was to look after Nagi and his ord. Wasn't really specific, so he knew that what he was about to do was not breaking his orders or promises. This was his way to look over the boy. Nagi, why do you fight? Naruto asked as he slowly straightened up and slowly walked towards the team. To end this war. The war is already over, Nagi. The war's been over since we rescued Haim-chan from top of that tower. To defeat Cosmo Entelequia. Why do you wish to defeat them, Nagi? Because they were the ones who manipulated everyone into fighting. They continued to keep this war going, killing hundreds of thousands to complete whatever sick goal they have, the boy said as he violently tosses his arm to his side. Tell me, Sensei, why are you here? Why are you a member of Cosmo Entelequia? Why? Quote. Naruto ignored the boy's questions. Do you know what their sick goal is? Nagi's eyes widened. No, he answered, realizing they knew nothing of their enemy's purpose. It's to save the world, Nagi, the Ravenet answered, bitterness and sadness clear in his tone. What then? Why did they continue the war? Why did they sacrifice so many lives if they wanted to simply save the world? Naruto again didn't respond. He just took off that fur-collared jacket he always wore and threw it aside, shocking Nagi at the loud visible thud the simple jacket made when it hit the ground. No time to talk, Nagi. Time is running out, he said as he got into one of his loose fighting style's fists free on his side while his legs were a few steps apart. First part, taijutsu, Naruto said as he suddenly vanished in a burst of speed, surprising the young redhead as he barely saw the man reappearing in front of him. Fist pulled back as the man punched slowly sent his fist towards the young redhead's chest. It was aimed at his heart. It was a killing blow and it was definitely going to hit. Melodia Bellix de by Festinando. Melody of battle. Double speed fist, Nagi thought as his entire boy was coated by his mana, making his body faster and stronger. Vis. Maximum output, Nagi shouted out as Naruto's fist landed on his chest. Nagi was sent staggering back as he held onto his chest. If he did not reinforce himself in time, his heart would have exploded from the blow. He looked at his sensei once more as he kept a rather expressionless face comparable to the ones shown by Primum. If you don't take this seriously, you will die, Nagi, Naruto sighed. As he vanished again in another burst of speed and blurred out of Nagi's vision as he moved to Nagi's left, quickly punching with a series of body blows before finishing with a punch to the boy's face. Nagi gritted his teeth. His sensei was serious, and throughout all the years he studied under the man, Nagi rarely saw the man serious, and despite not wanting to admit it, deep down inside Nagi felt afraid. Mentally shaking his head, Nagi looked at the blurred image of his sensei that was now moving in high speed, once more running towards him. His sensei was definitely fast, faster than Jack and even Primum. Nagi smiled as he decided to throw away all his hesitations. If there was one thing he learned after he left his sensei, it was how to appreciate and enjoy a good fight. He was definitely going to enjoy this one. Nagi slowly followed the image of his sensei as he brought out both of his hands and lashed it out towards where he thought his sensei was going to be, and lucky enough he was here, and his hands landed on the man's shoulder. The red-headed mage grabbed on tightly as he vaulted himself over his sensei, pulling his legs back before dropkicking the man in his face. Tisk. Nagi licked his tongue when he saw his sensei's arms crossed against his face, defending him from any real harm. The boy then twisted his body midair and flipped back just in time to avoid an upward knee strike from Naruto. The red-head mage quickly landed on the ground before dashing towards his sensei, throwing a combination of a few hooks, jabs, palm strikes, and thrusts that hit the older man all over his body. You have to try harder than that, Naruto said before. With one swift motion he grabbed Nagi's arm by the wrist and gripped onto it tightly. This is how you punch, Nagi, he said as he pulled back a fist and punched Nagi in the chest for the second time that day. This one infinitely stronger than the first one, is evidenced by the fact that Nagi fell on his knees and immediately clutched his chest as he coughed out blood. Nagi, stop holding back, the man said as he jumped up into the air, leg already raised up high as he prepared himself to deliver an axe kick directly on the boy's head. Nagi smirked as he suddenly stood up and raised both of his hands to the air, caught the man's leg before it hit him, and used it to vault himself over his sensei, kicking the man in the face as he did so. Naruto flipped through the air as he landed and spat out a glob of blood. That's more like it, he said as he cracked his knuckles and raised his fists once more. Come one, Nag. I show me what you can do, he said as he held his fists close to him, adopting the style of a pure defensive counterattack-oriented boxer. Nagi just smirked as he looked at his sensei. You always told me never to let my opponent dictate the flow of the battle, he said as an electrically charged magical javelin formed in his hand before throwing it at his sensei, forcing the man to dodge the attack by jumping back. Got you, Nagi said as two identical copies of him appeared behind the airborne Ravenet. Both aimed their hands on the man. Eunice. Fulgur Considens Noctum, in Mea Manu ens edit. Fulguration albicans. A flash of lightning to cut through the night, spring forth from my hand and throttle my enemy. White lightning, the two clones shouted out as they fired a powerful blast of elector. City from their palms, hitting the airborne man, who started screaming out in pain. Nagi smiled as he watched his sensei get electrocuted. Good job, Nagi, the man worded out his mouth before he vanished in a puff of smoke. Shit, the boy said as he immediately flipped away to avoid three magically created javelins infused by the spirits of the wind that almost impaled him. Well, I was planning on acting part 2 ninjutsu and part 3 magic, but since you seem to have figured out that I was playing with you, then there is no real reason to keep that up, Naruto said as he hung from the ceiling upside down before he dropped down to the ground. Since when? Nagi asked as he pulled out a small notebook from his pocket and opened it as he recited his activation spell, Man Turo Turo. When you were looking down when I hit your chest. I know for a fact that you faked that one. Nice acting though, he said before he placed his left hand in front of him. Despite preferring to Saint Ik with his natural move set based on his shinobi, it didn't mean that he didn't dabble in the art of magic as well. Noem bestias noem cautis noem sacrificia, 9 beasts 9 tails 9 sacrific. Said Naruto as he began channeling the spiritual portion of his chakra into the attack. Mil spiritus fulguris, 1000 spirits of lightning, Nagi added as 1000 spirits of lightning began appearing in the air. Mil spiritus ventus, 1000 spirits of wind, countered Naruto, who began summoning spirits of the wind. Cunts, Sagittant animicum meme. Sagitta magica s. Iris fulguris, come together and strike mine enemy. Magic arrows, Ceres lightning, Nagi cried out as 1000 arrows made of lightning fired themselves to the now smiling Ravenet. Lubricus per meus hostilis, Sagitta magica, Talia ventus, slice through my enemies. Magic arrows, cutting wind, Naruto responded by firing 1000 arrows made of wind. Not just regular wind that was often used to bind his enemies. Not his one was stronger, sharper, and deadlier. The attacks met each other head-on. There was a power struggle for a moment before the two attacks cancelled each other out, using an explosion that surrounded the whole area in smoke. The smoke hung in the air for only a few seconds before it was blown away by the dashing of both Naruto and Nagi as they met in the center of the cathedral once more and began exchanging blows. Naruto punched Nagi in the face before kneeing the kid in the stomach, making him bend forwards as the Ravenet delivered a double axe-handle down on the boy, making him crash down on the ground. Nagi coughed out blood as he quickly countered by sweeping Naruto in the legs, knocking the man off balance as Nagi twisted his body and delivered an upwards palm strike, hitting the Ravenet in the jaw before punching the man in the liver, then the chest with his other hand. Naruto stood his ground despite Nagi's attacks and smiled. The boy's blows were getting heavier and stronger. But he still needed a lot more if he was even planning on defeating Cosmo Entelequia. The Ravenet crossed his arms up onto his chest as Nagi delivered a powerful punch, this one enchanted by Sagitta Magica, and as expected it sent Naruto flying towards the altar. There was a loud crash when the Ravenet hit the altar, making it crash down on him. Everyone else would have relaxed at that point, but Nagi knew the fight was far from over, as he would have scoffed if that was all that it took to take down his master. That was a good punch, Naruto said as he pushed off some rubble and stood up. Hey Nagi, I never did tell you my position within Cosmo Entelequia, Naruto said as he placed a hand within his pocket, making the boy tense up. Nagi, Naruto said as pulled out a simple card from his pocket. The symbol of his status as the Life Maker's closest ally, an object only bestowed upon to him and no others. The sign of a Ministra. The sign of their partnership. He showed the card to Nagi and the boy's eyes widened, knowing exactly what his sensei was telling him. He was the Ministra of whoever it was that lead the enemy. He was second in command. Tell me Nagi, do you finally have your answer for me? The Naruto asked in a tone of coldness and indifference as he looked at his former student. No, I still haven't found the answer yet. Sensei, Nagi answered as he held on his staff. Naruto shook his head as he held his card. Adit, he said as he was covered in bright light. His old clothing gone, now replaced by a long zip-up leather jacket, one half of it colored black and the other white, along with a pair of black pants, red leather straps still studded along his legs. His new clothing was also accompanied by a long red scarf that was tied around his neck. In his hand a large and thick curved zanbedu-like blade that had a hole in the bottommost part of the blade. It was a collapsible three-bladed shuriken, a weapon used by the devil himself in the legends of the old Diabolus Forensis, Satan's legacy, Naruto silently whispered as he looked at Nagi. Nagi, you better think of your answer fast, because, the man said as he disappeared again. This time Nagi was sure that he couldn't even follow the man's movements, as he didn't even see even an after image. Because there won't be a next time, Nagi, he whispered as he appeared a few feet behind Nagi, his back facing the boy's back, as a large gash slowly appeared on the boy's shoulder. Time is running out, Nagi. Imperfect world. Outside the cathedral. It's been more than 30 minutes. I'm going in, Jack said as he pulled out the two swords from the ground. He was sure that he wasn't the only one who felt the strong amount of magical energy clashing against other coming from within the building. Just as Jack was about to approach the door, the whole cathedral suddenly exploded. What the hell? Jack shouted as he ran towards the center of the explosion. He was shortly followed by Aishin, Al, and Zek. The scene they arrived at was what could only be described as mind-blowing, at least for Aishin and Jack. The man they left behind, Naruto, was standing over a fallen Nagi. Jack was about to charge in but stopped when Aishin held him back. What the hell, Aishin? Jack asked. The swordsman just looked at the gladiator. ND shook his head as he pointed at the downed Nagi who was slowly getting up. Is that your answer, Nagi? The Ravenet said as he looked down on the red head. Yeah, sensei, Nagi replied weakly. Veer. Why, well, Naruto said as he looked at the others. Yo, he greeted as he picked up Nagi and threw him at Alberio. Make sure to patch him up good, Al, he added as Al caught Nagi. Naruto then turned to ND and started walking away despite the shouts of him to come back and explain things coming from both Aishin and Jack. Did you do this on purpose? Silently asked Zek as he looked at Naruto. Who knows? Naruto replied before he vanished in a swirl of black fire. Imperfect world. Ha 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 ha. Nagi panted heavily as he held tightly on the neck of the primum. After recovering from his battle against his sensei, Nagi and the rest of All Arubra proceeded to go back to their original mission. Another battle raged on as Nagi and his companions battled against the remaining forces of Cosmo Entelequia. Aishin killed an adept lightning mage by slicing him in half. Alberio defeated Dynamis by crushing him with his gravity spheres. Zek defeated Sexdecim by thrusting his arm on the man's chest and crushing a core-like device in it. Rakan defeated Ichi by pummeling the man to death with one of his ridiculously named yet badass finishing moves. The battle was over. They have won. Magnificent. Your strength is so ludicrous. Ha 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 ha. Tell me why you kidnapped the Twilight Princess. Tell me before you die, said Nagi as his companion slowly walked towards him. Why don't you ask him? What? Nagi asked before he suddenly felt a searing hot pain in his arm. Looking down he saw a large concentrated beam of darkness passing through him as it hit Primum in the stomach. Nagi. His Al. Lies screamed out as they ran towards him. Who in the hell? Jack said as he tilted his head to the side and saw the cloaked figure standing atop a tower that shot Nagi, who was charging up another attack. Not good, Kratos Tigus. Zek screamed out as he created a multiple-layered barrier in front of their group while Aishin stood in front of Nagi's sword already drawn. Shit. Jack screamed out as he gathered all his strength in his arms as he pushed forward just as the gigantic beam of darkness was fired at them and easily ripped through Zek's barriers. Nah. Jack grunted out as he pushed the attack back only for his arms to explode due to the sheer force of the attack. Everything went dark for the group as they all lay on the now destroyed landscape injured. Impossible, Jack's. As he lifted his head, blood was flowing down on his face as he felt his whole body shaking. For the first time in years, the immortal gladiator felt fear. Don't tell me that's, Al said as he looked at the figure standing far away. A figure dressed in black cloaks that waved in the wind as it stood still and looked down on their group. Things were looking really bad for their group. Aishan was already out. Jack knew it was impossible to beat the man based on his presence alone. Al was almost out of mana. Zekt was still generally okay, his barrier managing to lessen that damage on his body to a minimum. Hey, Nagi grunted out as he spat out blood from his mouth. Al, use all your remaining magic to heal me, he ordered as he stood up and started walking towards the enemy. But that's ridiculous, healing like that would kill you. I just need it to last for 30 minutes. But still, trust me Al, Nagi pleaded as he grabbed his staff from the floor. Haha. Don't worry Alberio, I'll look after him. I did suffer the least of all. Master, Zekt, Nagi, the two of you can't possibly beat him alone, shouted Al. If we do not defeat him here the world will be reduced to nothing. We really do not have any choice, answered Zekt as he wiped some blood away from his eye. Nagi wait, Jack shouted as well. It's no good, this guy's on a whole different level. We have to retreat now and regroup. If you go there you'll die. Ha ha ha, this isn't like you Jack. He turned around and gave one of his infamous grins. I'm the invincible Thousand Master, remember? I'll beat this guy to a pulp. Believe it, Nagi said as he and Zekt kicked off the ground and ran towards their attacker, leaving their injured comrades behind. I could tell with a single glance. That guy wasn't normal. Every cell in my body was screaming at me to get the hell away from here as fast as possible. What the hell was he? The mage of the beginning, the life maker, the leader of Cosmo Entelequia, said a family AR voice, catching Alberio and Jack's attention. The two turned their head towards the direction of the voice and saw Naruto standing relatively uninjured as he slowly walked by them. He is something that people may call a god, Naruto said as he looked at the tower. The Ravenet then pulled out something from his pocket and threw it beside Al. It was a small bag filled with different colored pills that will help heal your injuries. But I suggest you guys to leave in a hurry. Things are about to get chaotic. The Ravenet added as he walked into the tower as well. Imperfect world. Nagi was kneeling on one leg as he breathed heavily. Ignoring the bright light or the strong gusts surrounding him, he glared at the figure in front of him. Standing on top of one of the thousands of floating ROCKs around the area was none other than his master Zekt, or at least the body of his former master, as the mage decided to take over the small white-haired boy's body after Nagi defeated him. I thought it was possible. But after seeing this whole event I have concluded that it is quite impossible for a war hero like you to shape the future, he said in a cold and monotone voice. In the end, you were unable to change anything. This world will still be destroyed in the end, the man prophesied as his body slowly began fizzing in and out of existence. Humanity is beyond saving, the life maker said as he looked closely at Nagi. Hero. No, he shook his head. No, out 2,600 years of despair. He then looked at the other person in the battlefield, a badly injured raven-haired man that stood far away from both the hero and the villain. My friend, I will see you later, he said as he looked at both of them. Farewell, he added as he slowly turned into dust as he was gently carried off by the wind. Gnawing. Master. Zekt, Nagi screamed out as he ignored his injuries. Master. Nagi continued shouting until he felt a hand patting him on the back. He looked back and saw his sensei Naruto looking at him with a face full of sorrow. This will not be the end. I know, Nagi answered as he looked at the horizon. Good, Nagi, despite how he acts he believes in humanity. No, he envies humanity, he wishes to remember what it means to be human once more, something he has forgotten long ago, the Ravenet said as he gently smiled at his apprentice. Stupid brat, don't look sad, you did well, Naruto said as he ruffled the teen's red hair. Thank you sensei, it's nothing brat. No Nagi, he looked at the kid once more like he did long ago. This is goodbye Nagi, is this really goodbye sensei? Nagi asked as he felt a small pang of deja vu. Nah, I think we'll meet in the future, you know what, I promise that we'll meet again. He stopped ruffling the teen's hair. He make sure the next time we meet each other you and Arika already have babies, okay? He joked as the teen blushed. I'll see you later then, the Ravenet said as he smiled at Nagi before he slowly disappeared, just like the life maker before him, leaving behind Nagi, who was smiling sadly. See you later, sensei. Imperfect world, this was the perfect place to end it, but I had to continue. In a dimly lit lab-like room in one of the Cosmo Entelechia's secret bases hidden all over Mundus Magicus sat a white-haired boy that was looking over a few books and schematics. The man was fully reading and studying while he plotted each and every action his group will take in the future. The last fight against the redhead proved to be a wonderful experience for the mage, as it showed him the hidden potential in humanity that he had not seen in years. Perhaps there really was a chance for this world to get saved. The sound of footsteps broke the man out his thoughts as he noticed he blue-eyed Ravenet standing a few steps away from him. How's your new body feeling? The man asked. It's small and quite frankly difficult to move in it. I hate this body. Ooh, the man said, as he faked interest. So what will you be doing now? I will be working on rebuilding our organization. He took out some schematics and looked over some blueprints. I'm thinking of building a few Veruncus that will take the place of Primum. Don't forget to build a new Adad and a tour, Naruto added. I almost forgot about that, thank you for reminding me. I really must do some improv. NTS on the Adad, the next one being the 17th unit, does not really bode well for me. Yeah, you should fix that, Naruto said as he slowly scratched the back of his head. Hey, since you're rebuilding you don't really need my help, right? That is true. Dynamis will be of much more use than you. Can I have another vacation then? He asked as he let that jab about Dynamis slide. The life maker looked at his friend before shaking his head. That can be arranged. Do what you have been doing in the past. Your assistance is currently not needed, the man added as Naruto smiled before he vanished. Really such a troublesome friend, the life maker noted as he began reading over his materials once more. Imperfect world. In certain country, in that one city, inside a random pub, two people met once more. They did not expect meeting in this place. Not even in a million years would the two imagine of an infinitely small chance occurring when both of them met, when they wanted nothing more than to drink their asses off, get wasted, and have the time of their lives. One because he was celebrating due to a certain event, while the other because he was on vacation and he spent most of those time either walking around or having as much fun as he could before he went back to his old life. Never imagined I'd see the day where I would have the chance to drink with you, Naruto said as he slowly drank from a glass half filled with whiskey. Yin, it's a celebratory drink, Nagi answered as he took a sip of his alcohol. Arika's pregnant, he said as the Ravenet suddenly did a spit take before looking at him strangely, poking his ears as if he did not believe what he just heard. What was that again? Arika's pregnant. I'm going to be a dad, Nagi answered as he suddenly found his EAD in a HAED locacy courtesy of his sensei. Ha ha ha, good for you, Nagi. The Ravenet laughed out loudly while his friend chuckled along with him. So what do you think I should name him, sensei? Nagi asked as he pulled himself away from the headlock. Why are you asking me? Naruto asked back as he looked at Nagi. You must be pretty wasted, brat. Well, Arika and I talked about it and she agreed to let you name our first child if we ever met you again, that is. So Haim-chan finally forgave me, Nope, she still hates you. Figures. Well, how about Negi? Negi Springfield. I like it. So nice that I could have helped out. You know that technically makes you the kid's godfather. Wait, what? Imperfect world. Time moves onwards. In the midst of a clearing a few kilometers away from the actual city of Istanbul stood a few figures. Arika, Nagi, Alberio, and Jack were standing on one side as they had already let Asuna, Takamichi, and a wounded Gato escape earlier. While in front of them stood the newest Averuncus tertium of the earth, Septecim the newest Tutor of water, Ni the second adder of fire, Dynamis, and the current mage of the beginning Zect. In between the two sides stood the familiar Ravenet. His hands were in his pockets as he looked at both sides. So this is it, he asked to no one really. Yeah, this is it, sensei. A now older and wiser Gi answered as he looked at his loving wife for a few seconds before he let his vision trail back to his one-time sensei. Will you look after Negi for me? He asked. The man didn't answer, but Nagi-K knew that he would definitely look after his son. Since his sensei was just that kind of person, someone who couldn't help but care about other people. "We'll see, Nagi," Naruto said as like everyone else. He began chanting a spell as both sides ran towards each other. It was another battlefield, a small-scale war. But that day will change the lives of a lot of people. It was the day that the future changed. The wheel of fate began turning as Nagi Springfield along with his wife Arika disappeared in Istanbul that day. Only a few people knew of the truth that occurred, and none of them will speak of it until the proper time comes. Until the time the new hero rises. Imperfect world. It has been a few years since the event in Istanbul. Naruto for most of his part after that lived mostly alone. While traveling around the world while occasionally looking after Nagi's son, Negi, although the last time he actually checked up on the kid was when the boy was still in the academy. Though he felt add that he wasn't there to protect the kid when the Confederation decided that it would have been a wise move to raze the village into the ground by summoning a horde of demons to lay waste upon it. He felt that he should be there for his godson, but certain circumstances prevented him from doing so. He had things to do and places to be, so he couldn't stay with the child. Although he did feel a pang of pain from time to time and wondered if that's what his old teacher felt when he knew the boy he was supposed to look after ended up growing alone. Yeah, right, the guy was probably too intoxicated and horny to even remember that he existed. At least he didn't forget about Negi, and he knew Negi had people around him to look over him. It's not like the kid will get beaten or something. Currently a raven-haired shinobi was sitting on top of a small cliff overlooking a crystalline blue ocean that showed the reflection of both the stars and the moon in the sky. It was a magnificent sight, and he wouldn't mind marveling in its beauty for a while longer. Came a cute sound from the girl sleeping peacefully on Naruto's lap, an aquamarine-haired girl who was normally cold and emotionless fitting her powers, but was rather kind and comfortable when she was with him. He smiled as he gently brushed away some hair covering the girl's face, which made the girl mumble out more before cuddling her head on his abs. "I hope you don't end up like the others," he said as he looked down on her face. "You and Tertium, the two of you were given more freedom than even I could hope for," he said bef. Or he tilted his head behind him and looked at the approaching aquamarine-haired boy. "Tertium, what are you doing here?" Naruto asked as he watched the emotionless aquamarine-haired boy that could pee. As the girl's younger brother showed up. "I met his son," the boy said as Naruto's eye suddenly widened in surprise before he smirked. "I guess he's responsible for that," the Ravenet said as he pulled his hand away from the sleeping girl and pointed at a small bruise on the boy's face. "Yes," he replied with the same emotionless tone he always used. "Man, Tertium, you really need to learn how to smile or show some emotion. Live a little, will you?" Naruto told him as he suddenly felt the weight on his lap shift, slowly getting lighter and lighter. "Money the girl mumbled out as she lazily got up from the man's lap and slowly rubbed her eyes. "Ohio," Naruto said as he looked at the girl, who looked back at him for a few seconds before she suddenly stood up and walked a few steps away from Naruto, standing straight as she placed her hand behind her back. "I am sincerely sorry about that, Naruto-san, that was highly inappropriate of me." "It's not a problem, Umi-chan Naruto-san, I must insist you call me by my name. Why? Umi sounds much better than Sextum." She was cut off when the boy cleared his throat. "Sextum, did you already tell Naruto-san?" "Ah, sorry," the girl said as she bowed before she turned at the Ravenet. "No need to tell me, Umi. I already know why you were sent here, but I am curious why you were here, Tertium. It's been 5 days since Sextum left and we've had no contact with her since then. Dynamis-san told me to look for her," he said, much to the embarrassment of the emotionless girl. "If Sextum did not tell you, how do you know? Did you read her mind?" the boy asked with a hint of curiosity, since Naruto's mind-reading capabilities was one of the 7 wonders of their old organization. "I can't read minds," the man replied as he slowly got up. "But I can read both of you like an open book, Tertium," he smirked. "And yes, I will keep calling you Tertium even though you want me to call you Fate, much like I call Sextum Umi," he said as the boy's eyes widened, surprise eminent on the emotionless boy's face. "Why must you keep doing that, Naruto-san?" asked the Avarunkus of water. Because it's fun, the man replied. Tertium shook his head. Dynamis will not be happy with your answer. He can handle it on his own. Tell him to keep playing dead or something, Naruto said, waving his hand as he dismissed Tertium. So what will you be doing then? Umi asked. I'm thinking of getting a job, the man said as he looked at the moon once more, smiling before turning away from the two. If either of you want to come with me, you are free to do so. Don't worry about Dynamis, I'll deal with him, the man told the two before he slowly walked away, leaving behind the two Avarunkus that shortly became one. I hope you find your purpose soon, Tertium. The on-e left behind looked at the Ravenet's back as he slowly walked away. I don't understand, he said to himself. Just keep looking, Fate, shouted Naruto before leaving with Sextum. Imperfect world. Naruto was walking down a hallway, and for once he wasn't wearing his normal clothes. This time he opted into wearing a black suit that made him look sharp, much like the one he wore when he hired Jack ages ago. Only this time he added a pair of glasses to his attire to make him look more professional and smarter. On his left hand the man held a suitcase filled with various supplies for his job. On his right he held a small collapsible metal stick which can be easily used for multiple things such as poking, stabbing, dislodging, smacking, and pointing. Most of all, it can also act as a wand if dead, as it met the requirements and runes to be considered as one. On top of his head though for some reason sat a turtle, a lazy turtle that slept on his head. Finally here, the Ravenet said as he stopped in front of a certain room. He placed his hand on the door and opened it. Ah, he's here, he heard from inside as he opened the door and saw a rather energetic 10-year-old boy, red-haired boy wearing a dark green suit standing in the middle of the room. Naruto smiled. The boy was a perfect copy of his father. Except for the brains that the kid 100% inherited from his mother. Naruto slowly walked inside the room. Steps light yet firm, his posture relaxed yet prepared for battle. From the side of his vision he looked at the class, noting their reactions. Some were as expected from hormonal teenage girls blushing and drooling from his sight. Some were rather indifferent. A few of them were gazing at him as if noticing the posture of a warrior that he firmly held. 3 stiffenen. G up as they seemed to know who he actually was. Another one was tilting her head to the side as she tried her best to remember why the man looked so familiar. And the reaction that made the Ravenet chuckled internally was the look on a certain blonde vampire's face who had her jaws hanging open, eyes wide as she pointed one finger at his direction. He gave her a discreet wink, making the girl turn red, then white. Then red again as she promptly closed her mouth by covering it with her hands. The green-haired girl beside the blonde was just looking at the girl strangely. Naruto returned his gaze to the 10-year-old boy in front of him as he reached the front of the classroom. He turned around and grabbed a piece of chalk as he wrote down his name on the blackboard before turning around to face the class. My name is Naruto. You can call me Naruto-sensei, and from today on I'm your new literature teacher. Nice to meet you, the Ravenet introduced himself with one of his natural bishy smiles. That was all it took for the classroom to explode and shortly descended into absolute chaos. Imperfect World Prologue End. And how did he become a teacher in Mahora? What happened during the Battle of Istanbul? What happened during his battle with Nagi? Where is Arika? What is royal magic? Where the hell is my FC King sandwich? All questions will be answered in the future, so for now just stay in your seats and wait. And whoever can guess what verse series Naruto's Pactio is from will get a cookie, and you know what, whoever guesses it first will and can ask for a girl here in this story to be paired with Naruto. And yes, they already rescued Asuna before the entire assault on Asita occurred. Like it, hate it, read and review. Vis Audir Fabula. Imperfect World. Disclaimer. Moss. Ashi Kishimoto owns Naruto, Ken Akamatsu owns Negima. And changed something from last chapter, made Naruto into a literature teacher instead of a biology teacher, since I was 50-50 at what type of charact. I'll build Naruto as, and it finally ended with me picking an archetype that I've been meaning to write. This chapter is mostly talking, no fight scenes. And just finished reading Muv Love Alden. Safe to say it was great and abso-fucking-lutely depressing in the end, and by God I loved it. XD side from that, nothing much in this chapter, just setting things up for future events. That and info dumping. I hate it, but I really need to introduce characters by bulks over the next few chapters before I focus on the more important ones. That's really the downside of not doing the whole Kyoto arc, but Matt. Unbedded tags. Oh, Imperfect World. The purpose of a storyteller is not to tell you how to think, but to give you questions to think upon. The Way of King's story starts. Chapter 1. Vis Audir Fabula. Naruto let out a slight grin while he lightly scratched the back of his head as he was suddenly bombarded by questions from a crowd of hormonal teenage girls. Now calm down, I'll answer one question at a time. Ah, you, he said as he pointed at a red-haired girl whose name he recalled in the student roster that the principal gave him. Asakura-san. Thank you Naruto-san, just a few questions if you don't mind. Sure. I will answer your questions to the best of my abilities. What's your last name? Secret, he said as he waved one finger around. Why? Because it's cooler that way. Ignoring his previous answer, the reporter decided to go for another question. How old are you? 2,600, give or take a few hundred years, he replied smiling. So 26 then. Sure, why not? Okay, where are you from? She asked, hopping to pull out a great scoop from the newest hunk of flesh that graced this academy. Mars, IAMAMARTIAN, he replied, still smiling seriously as each and every pay. RSON. In the room, sweat dropped while a certain brunette mastermind dropped her face on her desk and began grumbling about unpredicted variables and a stupid old man. Okay. Asakura muttered out as S. He began writing about their newest sensei's sanity as well as the hiring standards of Mahora Academy. Is that all? Just a few more. What are your hobbies? Traveling, reading, storytelling. He started off as the girl started writing it down. Walking, running, infiltrating, assassinating, blowing stuff up. He added as the girl suddenly stopped writing in her notepad and looked at him as if he just grew a second head. Okay, last question then. Do you have a girlfriend? The girl asked the question she knew others were dying to get an answer on. Naruto replied as he cupped his own chin and began thinking. I'm not sure, but does my turtle count as a girlfriend? He asked as he pointed on the small turtle perched on top of his head. Almost everyone in class simultaneously FACE faltered while all thinking. Great, we have an insane teacher. While a select few were just doing their best to observe the strange Ravenet who carried himself differently from other teachers. If they were looking close enough, they would have seen that the turtle was somewhat blushing. Anyo, Naruto-sensei, I think you should answer seriously, asked the green-clad 10-year-old teacher still standing beside the strange black-haired man. I am answering seriously, he replied as he looked at the small Nagi clone. Ah, Nagi-san. He purposely let his tongue slip as the boy suddenly froze in place, eyes widening. I mean Negi, sorry, I stuttered. He chuckled. The principal was calling for you, the boy asked as he tilted his head to the side. Yeah, he called for you around 10 minutes ago, Naru. Said as he looked at the boy. If you don't hurry, he said he might fire you, he joked as the boy's eyes widened to the size of dinner plates as he quickly grabbed his own roster and ran out of the room. Was that necessary, sensei? Asked Asuna, a heterochromic orange-haired pigtailed girl as she looked at Negi. Normally she'd be all protective and defensive about the boy, but something just felt strange about the man. It was as if something about him was familiar. Not really, but I'd like to get our class started soon, he said as he placed a hand inside his pocket and pulled out a plain-looking red book. Okay class, he said as he opened up the book. Would everyone like to listen to an old story? He asked, getting everyone's attention. Don't worry, since this is just the first lect. I just want you to listen to this story, he said as he began calmly reciting the opening lines of a classic that a few in the room recognized. Two households, both alike in dignity, in fair Verona, where we lay our scene. And so began the first of many literature classes that they would have with the strange man. Then again, he wasn't really strange. Everyone was just too normal when compared to him. Imperfect World. Within a well-furnished office, the current dean of Mahora Academy, the furry-browed Kanemon Kono, stood as he looked at the gigantic tree planted in the middle of the academy, the World Tree. A few meters away behind the old man stood a gray-haired, slightly rugged-looking bespectacled man. This man was Takamichi T. Takahata, former student of the late Gato of all Arubra. known as Death Glasses throughout the magical world, and was current teacher at Mahora Academy. At the moment, said man was currently staring at the dean, not believing what he just heard from the old man. Are you sure about this? Takamichi asked as he failed to hide the slight anger in his tone. Yes, Takamichi-kun, the old man replied as he rubbed his long beard. But he's one of them, he betray. Ed alla rubra, he snapped back at the old man. Kanamon shook his head. Do not worry, Takamichi-kun, he assured me that he is no longer a member of their group. The old man broke his gaze from the tree, as he turned around and faced the bespectacled teacher. Are you sure? Yes, he had made it quite clear that he was no longer a part of their organization. But what about his companion? Don't tell me you haven't noticed that turtle, Takamichi asked. Do not let your biases from the war cloud your judgment. Takamichi, as for the turtle, Naruto-san has promised to keep her in line if anything happens. Apparently she's one of the series that he stole from their organization before he left. But, ho, remember he cared deeply for Nagi. He's basically the boy's father. But if he's Nagi's fa. There, then why did he betray us during the most crucial moment of the entire war? If he didn't do that, then why did it have to end like that for Nagi-san and Arika-sama? The old man Chuck L. Ed dryly, trust me when I say this, Takamichi-kun, he's regretting what happened. He took it the hardest since he was there when it happened. He paused for a moment as he took in a deep breath. Do you know Takamichi-kun? I have known him far before you or any of the members of Alla Rubra were born, well except Phileas and Alberio, that is. He chuckled again as he sagely rubbed his beard. I want you to know, if he could, he would have intervened. If he was not bound to certain circumstances, he would have been the first one to stand against Cosmo Entelequia. He sighed as he focused on Takamichi. So for now, trust him. Takamichi, give him a second chance. Takamichi rubbed his temples as he closed his eyes. He knew it was wrong to hate the Ravenet, but he couldn't help it. The man was a member of the group that was responsible for his master's death. Before he could reply, there was a loud running sound coming towards the doors leading to the room. The two mages turned around and looked. Ed at the door just in time to see it burst open as a small red-haired boy wearing a green suit came running inside. Dean-san, I'm here. Please don't fire me, the boy shouted as he ran towards the two older men. Both just sweat dropped. This had Naruto written all over it. No one is firing you, Negi, Takamachi said as placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. But Naruto-sensei said, ho, don't mind him. That's just his unique sense of humor, the dean said, getting the boy's attention. Ha, the boy chuckled as he scratched the back of his head. I see, he said, embarrassed that he fell for such an obvious lie. Then why did you call me here, Kono-san? Thank you for reminding me about that, ho. It seems old age is finally catching up to me, the old man joked. I remember, I called you here to tell you something about our newest staff member. About Naruto-sensei. Yes, the old man answered, nodding as he did so. You see, Naruto-san is an old friend of mine. I just wanted to tell you not to cause too much trouble for him. So is he a mage as well then? The boy asked. Yes, a very strong one, the old man answered. Naruto-sensei is a strong mage. The boy asked in surprise as he looked at Takamichi, who nodded back. He's stronger than me, the man begrudgingly admitted, shocking the red-haired boy even further. He's probably even stronger than a fully powered Evangeline, he added. But how is that possible? Isn't Evangeline-san one of the strongest mage in existence? The boy's eyes widened even further. That means, ho, yes, Negi-kun, Naruto-san is on par with your father, the Thousand Master, the old man Kono said. What is someone as strong as Tu-san doing in the academy? The boy asked. He was looking for a job, and I was looking for a new literature teacher to replace the one that went for a leave of absence. Just don't bother him too much, Negi-kun, and who knows, he might teach you a thing or two if you get on his good side. Hi, Negi cheerfully replied as he processed the information he just received. Since that fateful trip to Kyoto, the boy has been desperately trying to find a way to get stronger. His encounter with the Inagami Katarao and that aquamarine-haired boy Fate proved that he still had a long way to go if he ever wanted to surpass his father, and if this man could help him get stronger, then Negi. The boy was snapped out of his thoughts by a rather sharp and cold tone coming from Takamichi. This actually shocked the boy more than the revelation of the newest teacher of Mahora being a powerful age. As long as he had known the bespectacled man, never has he heard him use such a dreadful and harsh tone. Negi, that man is dangerous, Takamichi warned. Ho ho ho. Takamichi, what did I tell you earlier? The old man purposely dropped the suffix as he fully opened his normally squinted eyes hidden under his eyebrows and glared at Takamichi as he released killing intent that made the man break out in cold sweat. Just be wary of him, Takamichi added as he finally decided to shut up. Why? Negi asked innocently, completely oblivious to the tense atmosphere, once again proving that despite his intelligence he really was just a 10-year-old boy. Don't mind Takamichi-kun, he and Naruto-san just have a rather rocky relationship in the past, isn't that right, Takamichi-kun? Hi, the bespectacled man answered back. Nay Takamichi, what happened between you and Naruto-san? Negi asked. We'll tell you when you're older, the two older men in the room replied in unison. Hi, the boy replied as he visibly deflated. That old man smiled. You can always ask Naruto-san if you want, he said before adding, that's all I have to say to you today, Negi-kun. You may go. Okay. Goodbye Kono-san, Takami. Kai, the boy said as he slightly bowed before leaving the room with a large smile on his face. The boy had a certain raven-haired teacher to talk to. Takamichi sighed as he shook his head one more time. Are you really sure about this? He asked again. Yes, the old man replied as he turned around and faced the window once more as his eyes gazed upon the world tree. I see, Takamichi said as he said, I guess I'll give him one more chance, but, if he betrays us or cause harm to any of our students I will not hesitate to attack him, he said before took a slight bow and left the room. He's the reason you and all the others are alive. He is the reason everyone here is not trapped within the perfect world the Life Maker wished for. The old man shook his head as he once again broke his gaze upon the tree and sat down on his desk where a bunch of paperwork awaited him. He needed something to clear his mind, and for once he was actually happy about the paperwork in front of him. Imperfect world, for never was a story of more woe than this of Juliet and her Romeo. Naruto finished as he closed the book and looked at the now teary-eyed and sniffling students of his class. Well, I'm GL. Ad, you liked the story, he said as the bell suddenly rang signaling the end of the class. Okay, so for Monday's class, well, I don't really have anything planned out, so no homework and such, he added, as he looked at everyone inside the classroom one more time before making his way towards the door. If anyone wants to ask me something, just feel free to drop by the faculty room. Aside from that, enjoy your weekend, he finished as he opened the door and left the room. Just like when he came, the moment the man left the room everyone descended into chaos once more. Well, almost everyone, since a few didn't care or just hid the fact that they did really well. But as everyone in the class was arguing, no one noticed the small blonde and her green-haired seatmate silently leave the room. He was Ho-chi, said Yuna, the athletic basketball player of the class started. Yeah, totally. If I didn't have a boyfriend I'd so go for him, Shina, one of the 3 cheerleaders of their class, said. He was nice. Kujimaya, another of the cheerleaders, added her opinion. But he might be a playboy, she added in disdain. Pretty weird though, Asakura said as she looked over her notes from the mini-interview. 2,600-year-old Martian, like that's possible. She chuckled as she thought. But if mages are real, then, nah, that would be too far-fetched, she thought. I like Negi-kun better, a cheery pink-haired girl Maki said as a few other people from the class nodded in agreement. Foo, but he has a hot body, the resident mangaka, doujin artist, closest yaoi fan girl Haruna said as she began concocting a story about a forbidden love between a 10-year-old boy and a 26-year-old man. His story was pretty good, don't you think so? You, a rather introverted member of the Library Exploration Club Nodok, I asked her best friend and fellow club member. Shakespeare, definitely a classic, you answered as she took a sip from her juice box. I thought he was going to be teaching Japanese literature like our previous sensei, but it seems we'll be doing English-based ones as well. She took another sip as she looked around the classroom and saw more and more of the students talking about the newest piece of meat available in the market. Which was kinda weird considering they were all just in middle school. Quiet down. I don't really know why everyone is energetic now, it's just a new teacher, the blow. NDE-haired class Iansho Ayaka said as she tried to calm down her fellow students. Haha, since he isn't a 10-year-old boy you don't really care about him, do you, Iansho? Asuna asked, causing some of her classmates to snicker at the obvious jab towards the class Iansho's slightly disturbing love towards their 10-year-old homeroom teacher. What have I told you about those slanderous accusations? How about you then, isn't he one of those old men that you like? Ayaka snapped back as she pointed at Asuna. What was that, Shutokan? Asuna asked as she stood up from her seat and glared at the blonde. Look, it's Takahata-sensei, Ayaka shouted out as she pointed behind Asuna. Where? The orange-haired girl's head snapped back as she tried to find the man of her dreams. He wasn't there. Haha. She heard Ayaka laughing. Grr. Asuna growled as she jumped towards Ayaka. Before anyone noticed it, there was a huge cat fight between the two occurring in the middle of the class. Fight, fight, fight. The Narukami twins cheered out as they watched the fight from the sidelines. Beside the two, a black-haired girl with her hair tied to a ponytail to the side sweat dropped. Nay nay, Setsi. Han, what do you think about the new teacher? The girl now known as Setsuna heard as she looked at her Ojo-san, Kanoka Kono, who was the granddaughter of the school's dean. He was, interesting. Setsuna, the girl replied, not really wanting to tell her oh so innocent Ojo-sama that their new teacher, despite his attitude, carried the air of a warrior around him. She was actually quite impressed. That the man didn't show any openings even when the man was simply reading to the class. Her senses just screamed at her that the man was dangerous, but knowing that her Ojo-sama's grandfather owned he school, she just slowly chalked the man up as some sort of bodyguard that the old man must have hired to give extra protection to the class. If so, she needed to have a talk with the man sometime soon. The door of the classroom opened as Negi ran inside the room. Anyo, is Nato-sensei here? The boy asked as he looked at his students. Sorry sensei, you just missed him, the shy girl who often work. Ed is the nurse's assistant, Ako answered. He said something about going to the faculty room. Maybe you can find him there, sensei, the athletic member of the swim team Akira added as the boy nodded to the two of them. Thank you, Akira-san. Ako-san, the boy said as he bowed down before quickly turning around and leaving the room. A short distance away from Setsuna stood a slightly tanned girl who was chewing on a nikuman. He weird, but he held himself like warrior Uru. The resident martial artist Ku-fei said as she took another bite from her nikuman. So you noticed it as well, Fei Dagozero? The class ninja Kaide said as she looked at the person standing beside her. What do you think about him, Tatsumiya-san? She asked, trying to get an opinion from the one who she considered as a rival. The dark-skinned, secretly demon shrine maiden, gunslinger mercenary girl didn't reply. She just stayed still as if in shock before suddenly moving towards the door and leaving the classroom without answering the kunoichi's question. What was that about, Dagozero? Kaide asked as she looked at the dust trail that formed behind Mana. Might be challenge him to fight Uru, Ku-fei said with fire in her eyes. Who knows, Dagozero? Meanwhile, the dark-skinned beauty quickly walked towards the faculty room, her usual calm and stoic demeanor breaking down as she pulled out a card from her pocket. She looked at the card, which had a picture of a younger version of herself smiling as she leaned back into a metal cross behind her. It was the symbol of a promise she made years ago, a promise W. Ith a certain black-haired man that just suddenly popped out of nowhere. The girl shook her head as she placed the card back in her pocket. She needed to talk to him. Imperfect world. 4 different sets of footsteps, all in different strength and speed, were heard in the empty hallways of Mahora Academy. 4 different sets of footsteps, all walking towards one room, the room with all the answers to their questions. 4 different sets of footsteps came to a stop when as 4 people found themselves standing near the door towards the faculty room. Oh Booya, and Tatsumiya, what are you two doing here? The small blonde girl Evangeline asked as she looked at her fellow classmates. Ah, Evangeline-san, I'm just here to talk with Naruto-sensei, the boy said as he walked towards the door only to stop when a bullet sailed through the air and hit a few inches away from his foot. What was that? Negi said in shock as he turned towards the perpetrator, Mana Tatsumiya, holding a beret. Ta with a suppressor on it minimizing the sound of the gunfire. Magical bullet, it won't kill you but it will hurt, the shrine maiden answered as she took in a deep breath before adding, I'm sorry. Nay, Gi-sensei, but I need to talk to Naruto-sensei now. This is urgent, the girl said as she placed her hand under her skirt and pulled another gun strapped in her thigh before pointing it at Evangeline. His was definitely one of the stupidest things she has done in her life. That goes for you as well, Evangeline-san. Oh, and how are you going to stop me? Evangeline asked with a hint of condescencio. And as her companion, the green-haired gynoid Chachimaru, placed herself in front of her master. She didn't reply as she kept her gun aimed at both Chachimaru and Negi. Tatsumiya-san, Evangeline-san, please, calm down. We can all talk about this. No one needs to get hurt, the 10-year-old teacher pleaded as he desperately tried to defuse the situation. Why was it always his students who wound up in life or death situations? Mana and Evangeline glared at the boy. That was all it took to make him back off and cower towards a nearby corner. He faced against the likes of Fate and Kotaro, even standing up against a demon god, but those events seemed ridiculously insignificant under the sheer killing intent his two students were releasing. He made the right choice of just shutting up. Quote, Chachimaru, the blonde called out as she snapped her fingers. Yes, master, the gynoid replied as she got into a battle stance, feet slightly apart, one arm extended forward towards Mana while the other was kept near her body. Mana mumbled out as she pointed both her guns at Chachimaru. Both were just mere moments away from battling against one another. One could hear a pin drop as there was a sudden moment of silence around the immediate area. Mana just glared at Chachimaru. Both were ready to attack. Evangeline was smirking. Chachimaru looked impassive. Mana was looking just as emotionless as Chachimaru. Negi was scared as hell and was on the verge of tears. The door of the faculty room opened. That broke both the silence and the impending death match as both combatants immediately left their respective battle stances while Mana quickly hid her guns. An old teacher wearing a pair of glasses walked out from the room and glared at the students and teacher. What is with all the noise going on out here? Nita-sensei. Negi almost shouted out, thankful for the older teacher's sudden appearance. The boy bowed apologetically. Sorry for the noise. We were looking for Naruto-sensei. You just missed him. He just left a few minutes ago saying something about looking for a place to stay. The older teacher said, answering, causing everyone outside of the office aside from him to deflate. Do you know where he's going, Nita-sensei? Evangeline asked. And why would you want to know that, McDowell-san? The teacher asked back. Because I needed to ask him something about our literature class, she lied. And I'm assuming that's why Tatsumiya and Karakuri-san are with you. The other two silently nodded. Well, I don't really know where he was going, but he did tell me that he will be around campus grounds. Thank you, Evangeline, Mana, and Negi replied before they turned around and left the teacher alone. If they stayed a little longer they would have seen Nita-sensei smirk before he was covered by white smoke, and in his place replacing him was none other than Naruto. No need to hurry, young ones, I will talk to all of you soon, he said as he went back inside the faculty room. Imperfect world, where the hell is he? Evangeline, the one and only Maga Nosferatu, a 500-year self-proclaimed evil mage and Shinso feared throughout the magical world, grumbled out as she walked towards her small cottage located within the rather forested parts of the academy. The now cursed and severely weakened Shinso, thanks to a certain red-haired man, spent most of the afternoon looking for Naruto, even teaming up with that half-demon Mana and that brat Negi for a while to look for him, but no matter where they searched they could just not find the man. Master, why are you looking for our new sensei? Her green-haired companion, the gynoid Chachimaru Karakuri, asked. Evangeline sighed. She blushed before shaking her head. An old acquaintance of mine. A really old one. She walked up the small flight of stairs connected to her veranda leading to her home. Master. The mechanical voice of Chachiramu caught her attention. What is it? She asked, turning around to look at the gynoid. I'm sensing an unknown heat signature within our home. We appear to have intruders. She looked a shocked Evangeline, who failed to notice it. Do I engage them? The gray-haired girl said as she readied her weapons and prepared to run inside the house and eliminate the threat. No, I'll deal with whoever it is. Evangeline said as walked towards the door, though Br. Edie to back me up, she added as she slowly opened the door. The girl proceeded to freeze where she stood. Master, the gynoid asked as she looked at her master in confusion before looking inside the room as well. Good afternoon Eva-chan, Chachimaru-san. The intruder, Naruto greeted as he casually took another sip of tea. Oddly enough his turtle was sitting on the table drinking tea as well seemingly talking to a green-haired doll sitting opposite to it, as if they were sharing stories of past battles. I've been looking for you everywhere. What the heck are you doing here? She asked as she stomped in the ground walking towards him before grabbing him by the collar of his shirt and pulling him towards her. Well, as you can see I'm drinking tea if that's what you're talking about. Grr. No, I mean why are you here? I needed a job. She looked at him with a deadpan expression on her face. Really, is that it? I'm serious and now I need a place to crash, so let me stay here for a while. No, thanks, I've already placed my stuff inside one of the rooms as well as made changes within your resort sphere. No, I also upgraded the utilities of the house. You now have the fastest internet and Wi-Fi as well as the best cable TV the world can offer. I've also brought all the latest gaming console systems along with a new HD TV. Surely you MSUT have been getting tired of those old games, right? Right. I mean I'm here offering you top necessities that can stave off your boredom for the next 30 years and all you have to do is let me stay in your house. I guess it's okay. She whispered out. Thanks Eva-chan. Naruto said as he rubbed the small vampire's head making the girl blush as he did so. Well, I'm tired. Need some sleep, so I'll see you later, okay, Naruto. Said as he stopped patting her and stood up from the chair and walked towards his new room. What the heck just happened? The vampire asked as she desperately tried to process how the Ravenet Zhu T made himself welcome into her own home with little to no effort. I believe we have a new house guest. Chachimaru replied mechanically as she looked towards the room the Ravenet was now using. Shish. Old, I label him as friendly or hostile master. Friendly? Well, at least for now. The girl growled out as she rubbed her temples. She knew Naruto from long ago, and if he was still the same as before, then her life was going to be both entertaining and hell. Hi, Chachimaru replied, nodding as she looked at the man, but for some reason, despite wanting to place the man in the friendly list, her kept placing him in the hostile list almost instantaneously. She'd have to ask her creator Hakase-san about that later on. Imperfect world. Well, that went better as I expected, the Ravenet said as he sat down on his bed. The room was quite simple. There was a comfortable bed. On the opposite side of the bed was a small flat screen TV. To its side was a few bookshelves filled to the brim with various books. And in the middle of the room was a coffee table which had a small laptop resting on top of it. It pretty much looked like a normal room. Seals and magical runes engraved on the wall aside, that is. I already placed my seals all over this room, so if you want you could change back to normal, he said as the turtle nodded at him. Light glowed around the turtle before there was a ood poofing sound accompanied by a puff of smoke that covered the turtle. In its place now stood an aquamarine-haired girl, the Avarunkus of Water Sextum, or as the Ravenet liked to call her, Umi. Naruto-san, are you sure it's safe? We are now in the middle of hostile territory filled with allies of the Thousand Mage. There is also the threat of our current landlord, the Maganosferatu. Are you sure it is wise to get employed here? Umi asked. Just rrust me on this one, replied Naruto nonchalantly as ever as he sat on the bed. I find it a bit hard to believe that though Dynamis and Ateru-san were quite adamant about not letting you make decisions that may affect the group. You seem to be forgetting, Umi-chan. I'm no longer part of the group, he said as he waved a finger in front of her. Forgive me, I have forgotten. She bowed down. No need to worry, Umi-chan tilde, he replied. The girl nodded before asking, Naruto-san, what are your plans now? Nothing really, he said as he pulled out a book out of somewhere, where exactly Sextum didn't know and for once didn't really bother to ask. The Ravenet was just mysterious like that. It's best to enjoy times of peace like this, Umi. He flipped to a different page. Days like these will be rare in the future. He read his book for a few minutes before noticing that his companion was just standing in place looking at him as he read. Shaking his head, Naruto closed the book. Umi-chan, why did you come with me? He asked. The girl started as she placed her left hand on her chest. I do not know, Naruto-san, but something inside me was telling me to come with you. I do not know what it is, but it has greatly confused me. Was it an order from Dynamis? No, I don't know, the girl said as confusion became clear in her normally emotionless face. Would you have come with me despite Dynamis ordering you not to? Yes, the girl answered without hesitation, surprising both her and the Ravenet. Naruto smiled. You're making your own decisions. He stood up and walked towards her before placing his hand on her head and gently patting her. I'm proud of you. Why? The aquamarine-haired girl asked as she tilted her head to the side. Because you're defying your fate. Huh. He kept smiling. You are beginning to make your own decisions based on your own personal beliefs. You are slowly evolving, looking for your own path that you will eventually follow in the end. Does that mean that I am defective? The girl asked. Naruto frowned. No, you're not defective. You and Tertium are the aim. He gently ruffled her hair. Not defective, special, and extremely different from your siblings. I do not understand. You will one day, he said as he stopped ruffling her hair and walked back to the bed. The girl shook her head at the man's casual laid-back attitude. Naruto-san, what do you wish for me to do here for the duration of my stay? I really do not like staying as a turtle for long periods of time. Do you want me to enroll you to the school? The man said as he sat down on the bed again. But wouldn't that arouse too much suspicion? Haha, too late for that there, Alred. Why too suspicious about me adding you to the mix won't really make things worse. Plus old man Kono kind knows about you already. Thank you for the offer, but let me think about it first, Naruto-san. I hope you accept it. He smiled. This might help you out find your purpose, he added as he lay down on the bed and yawned. I'm tired today, Umi-chan. I'm going to sleep for a few hours, he yawned as he made himself comfortable in the bed. What should I do? Sextum asked. Do whatever you wish, Umi-chan. The man replied as he closed his eyes. A few minutes later and the man was already snoring. The Avarunkus of water stared at the Ravenet. It wasn't often that she was given no orders and was asked to do whatever she wanted. Now that she thought about it, it was only the Ravenet who gave her such orders. The girl closed her eyes and gave it a moment to think things through. What was the wish of a puppet without orders from their master? To do what she wanted to do. But what did she want to do? The girl opened her eyes as they landed once more on the man sleeping in front of her. She didn't understand why, but before she even noticed it, she was already carefully sneaking in the man's bed. Lying down beside him as she snuggled herself against his chest. She could hear his heart beating gently through his chest as her eyes slowly got heavy. Soon enough the girl closed her eyes and fell asleep to the sound of the man's heartbeat. If the girl opened her eyes even once during that time, she would have witnessed a rare sight only seen by a handful during the last 1,000 years. A warm and caring smile etched on the Ravenet's face. Imperfect world. Evangeline left her room. It was already late in the night and for some reason she couldn't really sleep for the day. It might be because she wanted to talk to the Ravenet, but he really hasn't come out of his room after their initial meeting. She tried knocking and opening the door, but it just didn't budge. She then tried asking Chachimaru to take the door down, only for that to end up as a failure as well. It took her a while to actually remember that the man was basically a god when it came to creating barriers using complex seals. She really should let the man look over her curse one of these days. With feet light as ever, she silent walked down the stairs, noting a slight chill coming from a now open door leading to the veranda in front of her cottage. It didn't take a genius to figure out who she was sensing outside the door. Shaking her head, she walked out of her cottage towards the veranda where she found the Ravenet sitting on the wooden steps. The man was looking up towards the sky. Various plates that once held food was on his side, a half-filled cup of sake in one hand as he petted the turtle with the other. If you're going to ask what I am doing here, Naruto said, surprising Eva, then the answer would simply be that I'm drinking while looking at the moon. Naruto replied as he took a sip of sake from a small cup. Did you just read my mind? I can't read minds, but I can read you like an open Eva-tan. She just rolled her eyes and sadly while crossing her arms in front of her chest. It's been centuries and you still have that habit of yours. You still stare at the moon. He laughed dryly. Some things just don't change, he said as he broke his gaze from the moon and looked at his blonde companion. Hey Eva, do you hate me? He asked as the girl sat beside him and sighed. I don't, at least not anymore, she said as she poured herself a cup of sake and took a sip. It wasn't your fault, so don't think about it anymore. I'm really sorry for that, you know. He took a sip of sake. Certain circumstances prevented me from looking after you any longer. It wasn't your fault. She took a sip of her own sake. Sometimes I think it is. He kept his eyes lingering on the moon as he petted the small turtle. Do you still think that you're? No, I haven't. Not for a long time. I've changed over the years. Falling in love with my brat of a disciple does that to you, right? Baka. She blushed. I wasn't in love with him. She spat out, trying to keep the fact that she did have a small crush on the red-haired man. Because he reminded her of the ravenet before taking a huge sip from her cup of sake. Did you like him since he reminded you of little old me, Q in spit take? Wah wah what? No no no. She dropped her cup as she waved her hand defensively in front of her. Lucky you. Sometimes people don't find ones they love. They remain unchanging throughout their whole lives. He smiled sadly. Some are born a fool, lives a life of a fool, and dies a fool, never having the opportunity to find someone to fawn over. He took a sip from his cup as he felt a jab in his ribs. You're acting all moody. That's not like you, a now calmer Eva said as she took her cup from the ground. Naruto smiled. I know, but from time to time people needs remove their own masks even. For just a short while, just be honest to oneself. Plus I'm always moody like this when I see the moon. Evangeline smirked as she drank some more of the sake. Senile old man. Lowly vampire hag, he sighed. As he leaned his head back just in time to evade the young blonde's cup that was sent flying at him. Baka, I know I've been called that thousands if not millions of times throughout my life. The man chuckled, nay. Eva, for old time's sake, would you like to hear a story, Eva? If it doesn't bore me then yes, and make sure it's a new one. I still remember some of those other stories you told me. Wow, you remembered them for 500 years. Just for me. Oh how sweet, Eva-tan. Naruto jibbed as he hugged the vampire, a gesture that the young girl kindly returned for a few seconds. That was Bafo. She pushed him away. She felt something biting her hand. What the heck? She thought, raising an eyebrow as she watched the ravenet's turtle who was somewhat glaring at her. Now that's something you didn't see every day. Okay, Eva-chan. If I remember correctly, I haven't told you this story before, the man said as he kept his vision lingering on the moon. There was once a child who had no friends because the child was weak and sick. The child was sad and lonely as the kid stayed at home alone while watching others play outside. From days on end the child would cry alone and only found comfort in an old book that contained an old tale. He looked at Evangeline, a tale about a man who was sealed in the moon. Haha, is that why you look at the moon, because of that old story? You could say that, the man said as he chuckled once more. So what happened next? The man smiled. You know what, I think I'll tell you the story some other time, he said as he took a sip of sake as the vampire pouted. Okay, fine, I'll tell you about the man in the moon then. I never told you that story before. Tisk. Good enough, the girl said as she too took a sip of sake. But are you sure? This might take the whole night. Not really good for a growing girl like you, he teased and got a jab in the rib for it. I have no problems with that, unless you do sensei, she teased back. Grinning as she edged closer to the man. Whatever you say, Ojo-chan, Naruto said, rolling his eyes as he cleared his throat. There was once a nine-tailed demon fox that appeared in the midst of a great village. Its mighty tails could crumble mountains and cause tsunamis. All of the warriors from the village assembled to fight the demon. Many died and the battle raged on until one brave soul was able to seal the demon by sacrificing his life. Naruto started as he began telling the tale of the boy who grew up to be a man who got sealed within the moon. The vampire and the small turtle who was now perched on top of his head listened intently to his tale, as the two could have sworn that the moon itself was shining down upon the man as he began telling them the tale. It was as if the moon itself was giving him its blessings. And so they listened to a tale of a boy, as he fought through all odds against fate, gigantic demons, a group of villains, a god, and finally against his closest friend now turned enemy. It was a tale of both happiness and sadness that ended with the boy leaving everyone behind as he sacrificed his life to seal off a beast that would lay waste upon the earth. The sun was already rising when the Ravenet finished the tale. There was a small bout of silence as the man stood up from his seat and left to return to his room. It wasn't until the man left the vampire alone did she notice that there was one thing that the Ravenet didn't say. No, it was as if the man purposely did not mention it. What was the boy's name? She thought as she stood up and silently went back to her room. One day she and the others who would eventually hear this tale shall learn of the boy's name, but by that point in time it would already be too late. Imperfect World End. The end. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.